Hey, what's up everybody? Clifton here with CliftonWP. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be taking a fresh, updated, deep dive look into the Kadence suite of WordPress website building tools. Now, if you're not familiar with Kadence, Kadence is essentially a set of tools that allows you to be able to build beautiful and effective WordPress website. It includes the Kadence theme, Kadence blocks, and several other plugins that will allow you to basically build any type of website that you want. And Kadence has been around for some time. Matter of fact, I have several videos on Kadence. However, in the last few months, Kadence has made a lot of major updates to their platform. And I wanted to make sure that I had a full in-depth tutorial that covers those updates, but also allows people who are discovering Kadence for the first time, or people who are already using Kadence, or even just beginners in the WordPress website building space, to be able to see the benefits of using Kadence to build out your website. So if you are ready to take a deep dive, fresh, updated look into Kadence, then let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, to get started, we have a fresh install of WordPress, and what you're looking at is the 2023 default theme. This is the default theme that comes when you install WordPress for the first time. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to go ahead and install the Kadence theme, and I'll walk you step by step on how to be able to do that. And shortly after that, we're going to install the Kadence blocks, which will allow us to be able to build out our pages. Both the Kadence theme and Kadence blocks are free to install in WordPress. So let's go ahead and install it right now. To install it, you want to go to your dashboard, and the way you get to your dashboard is you go to the title of your website in the admin toolbar, and if you hover over it, you'll see the dashboard link. You can also get to the dashboard by clicking right after the URL and doing a / and typing WP-admin, and if you hit enter, that will also take you to the dashboard. When you get there, hover over appearance, click on themes, and then click on add new, and that'll take you to the WordPress repository. In here, we want to go ahead and do a search for Kadence, and you'll see here the Kadence theme. Go ahead and click on install, and then click on activate. Once you've done that, you'll see now that your Kadence theme has been installed. When we visit the front end of the website, you'll see now that the website has changed, and it now has a different look and feel. It has the look and feel of the Kadence theme. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install Kadence blocks. To be able to do that, once again, go back to the dashboard, go to plugins, click on add new, and then do a search for Kadence blocks. When you do that search, you will see the Gutenberg blocks by Kadence, which will give us our page builder features. Go ahead and click on install and activate. And now our Kadence blocks is installed, and you'll see an additional menu item here at the bottom that shows you the Kadence blocks. And here under appearance, you'll see a link for the Kadence theme. Under the appearance and the Kadence dashboard, in here you'll see the areas of the theme that you can customize. You can customize the global colors, branding, typography, header layout, page layout, and footer layout. And then below that, you'll see the capabilities that are available with the Kadence Pro add-on. We'll talk about this a little bit later in the video, but for now we're going to be focusing on the free theme and the free capabilities of the theme. The best way to be able to make changes to your theme or to customize your theme is really through the WordPress customizer. You can access that by going to appearance and clicking on customize, or if you're on the front end of the website and under the admin toolbar here, you'll see the customizer link as well. If we go ahead and click that, it'll open up the customizer for us, and here we'll see the different areas that can be customized in the theme. So you can see the colors and fonts, the header, the footer, some general settings, post pages layout, search results, and then your site identity, menu, widgets, homepage settings, and additional CSS. These are your default WordPress customizer settings where you can upload things like your logo, set up your menus, and also make some changes to the home page. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each one of these tabs really quickly, and I'll show you what each of them contains and what they all customize for you on your theme. The first setting in the customizer is going to be your colors and fonts. If you access the colors and fonts tab, you'll be presented with the colors, buttons, and typography settings for the website. Under the colors tab is where you'll find the global palette for the website, which is essentially the color scheme for the site. As you can see, we have a blue color scheme going on here with these blue tones. You have up to 3 color palettes where you can store 2 additional palettes and have one be active for your website. Kadence actually comes with additional color palettes, which you can access by clicking on this folder, where you'll be presented with 8 additional color palettes that you can select from. So if I wanted a warmer tone, I can select this bottom one right here, and you can see here the color scheme of the website has changed. If you want a dark mode scheme, then you can select one of these that have the backgrounds that are darker, and you now have a darker color scheme. If you want to reset your global palette after making changes, it's very easy to do. Just go ahead and click on this reset icon, and it will reset it to the default color scheme. The global palette has 9 colors. Each color is linked to a different area of the website. The first 2 colors are your highlight or accent links, and these are linked to your buttons and your links on your website. So for instance, if I change this first color, let's change that to red, you'll notice that any links on the website are now red. The second color, it will be your hover state links, and that will change the color when you hover over a linked item. Okay, let's go ahead and reset that. The third color in the color palette is linked to your titles and headings. So your H1 tags all the way to your H6 tags will adopt this color right here. So here's an example of where the heading tag has adopted the color of the strongest text. So if I change this, for instance, let's change it to a blue color as an example, you can now see now here that the title here has changed to that blue, and so has the heading. The next color is your strong text, and this color is assigned to the text in the body of your website. So over here, if you look at this text right over here, this is in the body. And if we change that color to, let's change it to a light blue, you can see now that that color has changed. It has also changed over here as well. The next color after your strong text is going to be your medium text. This is assigned to your menu text, or the text that you find in your navigation. And that default color is going to be the it's going to be the 5th color in your global palette. The 6th color is subtle text. Typically, you would want to use this on text that you want differentiated from your main text. So something like a testimonial text or a quote text will basically have this subtle text assigned to it. The last 3 colors in the color palette are your background colors, and it starts off with a subtle background. The subtle background is applied to the backgrounds of your titles on your pages and your posts. A good example of that is if we were to go to the sample page here, and you can see the title text, and then behind that is the background for that title text. That background is deriving its color from this subtle background over here. So if I were to change that to a dark color or a different blue color, you'll see that the color is already reflected right here behind that title text. The next color is going to be your lighter background, and that's applied to the background for your content outside of the container that contains the actual content for the page. Typically, you'll see this if your page is boxed in some way, showing the background of the page. And so if I were to change this color to green or something like that, then you can see that color is highlighted over here. The final color is going to be your white or off-white color, and this is what you'll find in the content container for the site. So this is the color that's assigned to the content containers, where this way allows you to be able to see the text if the text is black, and on a dark mode, this will actually be a darker color, and then the text would be white. So if I change this color here, change it to blue as an example, you can then see where the final color in your color palette is applied. Okay. And then the rest of the settings on the colors are going to be your site background, content background. So we've already kind of talked about where these colors are assigned, and then the title above content background, you can set up that color here as well. And then if you want an overlay for your title text, you can also create an overlay color here as well, right? So if I wanted to overlay this with red as an example, then you can do the same thing there. Okay. One thing to note is on all these colors right here, so the backgrounds, right? So we talked about the color palette, but on the backgrounds themselves, you can actually opt to have the background be an image as an example, right? So on any of these. So if I were to select like this title above content background, I can go ahead and click here, and instead of it being a color, I can actually make it a gradient if I wanted to, right? So here's a gradient background for that, or I can also make it an image where I can upload an image and have that be an image instead. So this is a pretty cool, very versatile options for the backgrounds on your site. And then finally here we have the content links, which I explained earlier in your global palette. So you can see here where they are already assigned. So you can assign different colors here if you want to. So I can say I want those to be like that instead. And let's do kind of an orange one here. All right, and now I've sort of broken out the links color away from the global palette, okay? If I ever wanted to assign it, I can just go ahead and click here and just go ahead and select from my global palette like it was before. And now everything's back to how it was before, okay? And that will conclude the colors portion of the customizer. The next options here for settings is going to be your buttons and typography. So if you go under buttons, this basically controls the colors for the buttons. You can also control the border radius, the fonts that you want your buttons to adopt, any padding, button shadow, and button hover shadow states. Then the next option is going to be your typography, where you're controlling the fonts for your website. Typically, you're going to be assigning fonts to the main baseline content or the titles or headings on your pages. Changing the font is very easy. We can start with just some preset fonts that Kadence comes with. We have some font pairings here. You can select any one of these. So you can say, hey, I want it to be Oswald and Open Sans. Just select the one that you want. Click on Confirm Change Settings, and you'll notice that the fonts have now changed. Okay. Just like in the color palette, if you ever want to reset anything, just click on the reset icon and it will go back to the default of what it was before. You can have different fonts for the body of your site and the headings. Okay, so for instance, let's say for the body of my site, I would like this to be Poppins, and then I can come over here to my heading font family and I can change that to Play Fair Display as an example. Okay, so you can now see now that text has changed. And then I can also assign different fonts to different heading tags, but typically I don't recommend it. I recommend that you have it be uniform across the website so your website looks great. Okay, the next item in the customizer for the Kadence theme is going to be your header. And the header tab basically gives you access to the Kadence header builder. Now the Kadence theme has a very robust header builder, and when you first install the theme, the header that you see there just has the title. It has the primary navigation of the site and then a search icon. To access the header builder, you'll need to click on the header tab. And when you do that, it will open up the interface for the header builder, which will allow you to basically customize your header. On the left-hand side, you'll have two additional tabs. There's a general tab and a design tab. Under the general tab, you'll see the 7 default items that allow you to build out your header, which is going to be the logo, the primary navigation, and search. And then available items are your secondary navigation, a button, social icons, and an HTML item. Under the design tab, this is where you can make the generalized customizations to the entire header. And what that means is when you see this header background, you can go ahead and change this color to any color that you like, and it'll be reflected immediately in the interface. The other thing that's really cool is you can actually set up different header backgrounds for the different viewports or the different devices that will be viewing your website. So for instance, if I want my header on my tablet to be a red color and I want the header on my mobile device to be say blue, like that, then depending on when someone's or where someone's viewing your website, so if they're on their desktop, that's the color that they're going to be able to see. And we'll talk a little bit more about mobile editing when it comes to Kadence, but it's actually quite a very versatile and very robust header builder system. So these settings that you see here are for the general header. Now let's look at some more specific items when it comes to the header here. When you open up the header builder, over here at the very bottom is going to be the interface for building out this header. You can actually access these items directly in the header by clicking on this edit icon if you want to, but it's just better to work on it from here. The Kadence header has 3 rows. There is a top row, a main row, and a bottom row. The only row that's visible right now is the main row because that's the row that has the items in it. But as soon as you drop additional items into a row, then that row will then become visible. So for example, if you want to add a button to the top row as an example, you can move over here to the left and simply drag and drop that button anywhere into that top row. When you do that, then you'll notice that the button is now there in that top row. If I wanted something in the bottom row, I just need to go ahead and drag an item. So let's use these social icons and let's put that there in the bottom row. Okay, so you can now see that those rows are now populated, and as a row is populated, then it becomes visible. Each row also has its own settings and its own design settings. To access those settings, just hover over the row and then click on the cogwheel to the left of that row, and it will open up the settings for that row on the left-hand side. Okay, so these settings are actually separate settings from the generalized header settings. And in here, you'll see the layout options, standard, full width, or contained. The options are also can be different depending on the viewport or the device that's viewing the website. Then you have a minimum height, and then there are design options for each row where you can change the background, add a border, or increase the padding for that row. Similar to the rows, each item also has its own settings as well. So for instance, if you look at let's take the button as an example, and I want to further customize my button, clicking on the cogwheel for that button will open up the settings over here on the left. And from here, you can go ahead and make any changes that you want to the button. You'll have settings options where you can choose to either have the button open up in a new tab, whether or not you want it to be a filled button or outline button, or even the button visibility for logged out or logged in users. And then there's also a design tab where you can change the size of the button or create a custom button if you want. And you can change the colors, you can add border, you can do border radius, and you can even add a button shadow to that button. So, and each setting is different for each item. And depending on how you want to customize this, you can actually have a very robust looking header. For instance, I can just choose to move my button and just say I only want to use the main row. So I'm going to move my button all the way to the right. And I'm also going to take my social media icons and I'm just going to place that in the middle of the main row there. And immediately you can see that I now have a much more robust header. And so whatever your imagination will allow you to create, you can actually do it here. And if there's an item that doesn't fit in here for some reason, especially if you're using the free version of the theme, then you can always go ahead and use the HTML. So I can use the HTML item and go ahead and add whatever HTML I want to that and basically have any custom item that I want here as well. Another way to be able to add items to any of the rows is to simply click on the plus sign that shows up when you hover on a section of the row. So if I click on this plus sign, and whatever available items that are not being used will be displayed here, you can go ahead and just add it to that section by clicking on it. The next thing that I want to point out about the header builder is that you have a desktop mode, and then there's also the tablet/mobile mode, which will allow you to design the header that you want when people are viewing your website on a tablet. To access that version or the tablet version of the header, just go ahead and click on the tab over here, which is the tablet and mobile tab. And when you do that, you'll notice that there are two sections in the interface now. So you have your normal sections where you have the top row, main row, and the bottom row, but you also have an off canvas section where the mobile navigation is housed by default. This off canvas section is linked to this trigger icon. When I click on it, the off canvas will slide out as a panel, and within this panel you can add additional items. So for instance, I can come over here and say I would like to add a button here, and now when I click on this, now there is a button. Now keep in mind, the button that you configure here in this off-canvas panel, or even in the regular panel here in the tablet or mobile mode, is a different button than the button that's there on the desktop. Okay, so for instance, if I move this button, let's go ahead and move that right below the trigger. And I'm gonna call this, let's call this button mobile button. So this will be my mobile button. Now, if I switch back to the desktop, notice that my button on the desktop says contact. So these are two different buttons. And what's really nice about this is that you can have a completely different setup for your mobile devices when people are viewing your website with different elements, similar elements, but different content within those elements than you do on the desktop. One other thing you'll notice as well is when you're looking at it in tablet/mobile mode, if you want to see this even smaller, so what it looks like on a cell phone, over here down on the bottom left, you have the icons for desktop, tablet, and mobile device. Just click on the smallest one here, which is the mobile device, and you'll see an even smaller layout. So you can see what your website will look like on a mobile device. So basically when you come here, you can configure this to your heart's content, make it look as different or similar as you want. And then when people are viewing your website on a desktop versus viewing it on a tablet or a mobile device, you can have the presentation that you want different on each view. So now one thing you may have noticed is that as we are moving between the tablet and the desktop, you notice that this title keeps disappearing. Right? It disappears on the tablet and the mobile device. And the reason that's happening is because we haven't uploaded a logo yet, right? So this is all still in default. So what I recommend doing is as soon as you're ready and as soon as you have your logo, just go ahead and add that logo to your website. To do that is very easy. You can just go ahead and either click on the logo item in the main row, or you can hover over, you can click on the edit icon here. Both of them will take you to the logo settings. And then here we can go ahead and select the logo that we want. So I'm just going to select this logo. Okay, so now you can see my logo is now in place. And then choose a logo layout. I prefer to have a logo layout that doesn't include the text. So I'm just going to select this first logo layout here so I get a nice and clean layout for my header there. And that's it. Now your logo is in place. Now when I switch from the desktop to the tablet mode, my logo is still there, right? And let's get it on a mobile device, and there's my logo neatly placed. Okay. Now I can even change this layout that we're looking at over here for the mobile device. So I may want my logo, let's say I want my logo to be on the top row to the left, and I want this trigger on the right. So now I have a completely different arrangement, and let's say I don't want that button there. Okay, so now I have a completely different arrangement for my mobile device. When I look at it on a desktop, it still holds the arrangement that I have for my desktop. So this is a pretty awesome feature of the header builder in Kadence. Now, if we go back to, let's go back to the general settings. So here in the general settings of the header, we've talked about the items that are available to you. We've talked about the interface. Let's also talk about some of the additional features that are available to you in the free version of the Kadence theme header builder. Below in the settings at the very bottom, you'll see that there's an option for a transparent header and a sticky header. So a transparent header is basically the header of your site when it overlays on the page that it's on, giving a transparent effect. You may have seen this in other websites where there's a nice big image and it appears that the header is floated over that image and is transparent, so it's see-through. That's what this option is. And the transparent header option in the Kadence theme allows you to do just that. When you access the settings for it, you'll have to enable it. And when you enable it here in the customizer, keep in mind that what you're doing is you're enabling it across the board for your website. But individually on each post and page and custom post type, you can also enable and disable the transparent header. Okay, so let's go ahead and enable it and see what that looks like. So when you enable it, you get additional options. You can see here that it is disabled on search and archive. So this page that we're looking at right here, this is technically an archive page. So by default, when you load WordPress, when you're looking at the page, you're actually looking at the latest posts archive, right? And so we're disabling it here, and that's why that even though we've enabled the transparent header now, you're not seeing it overlay on the archive page. Now, in order for us to show it overlay on the archive page, I would have to toggle this off. So if I toggle this off, you'll now see now that it is now overlaid over the page. This is shifted up, and the header is now overlaid over the page, and it's completely see-through. Okay, let's go ahead and toggle that back on, and we'll look at it on a page next. So you can choose to disable it on pages. You can choose to disable it on posts. You can enable it for your desktops and your mobile devices, or you could disable it for both. It's entirely up to you. But what's really cool is you can also have a different logo for your transparent header. So if you have some pages that have a transparent header and some pages that have your general header, they can have completely different logos. To be able to do that, just go ahead and toggle this setting on and then select the image that you want to be your logo for transparent headers, and it will basically reflect that logo. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that. And so you can now see now on this archive page, we're not able to see a different logo. However, if I enable this for search and archives, you can now see that there is a logo for my transparent header because I've now set it for the search and archive pages. I really don't want that, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this by clicking on the remove link there. All right, I'm going to toggle this off, and this way I can go ahead and have my regular logo in place there. Okay. All right. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the sticky header option. So I'm going to go back to my general header settings, and at the very bottom we have the sticky header. Now a sticky header is a header that basically stays in place as you scroll up and down on the page. Okay. So if we click over here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to toggle this off. Typically when you come here, it's off as a setting. So when it's off, that means the header is going to move with the page as you scroll. Okay. Now, when you enable it, you have the option to enable it for only the main row, the top and main row, the whole header, only the top row, or only the bottom row of your header. So we're going to go ahead and just enable it here for just the main row because that's where our items are. Okay. You can choose to enable it to reveal when you start to scroll up, or you can choose to enable it to shrink as you start to scroll up. And you can even have a different logo when that scrolling begins, which is actually pretty cool, right? So I can just go ahead and say, hey, when you start scrolling, let's use this logo instead. Okay. You can enable it or disable it for mobile devices as well. And then it also has its own design settings. I also forgot to mention the transparent header also has its own design settings as well, where you can change the site title color, navigation colors, and so on. Okay. So now that we've enabled it here, let's go ahead and let's navigate to a page where we could potentially see that effect happening. So let's go to the sample page as an example. And you'll notice that as we start to scroll, the header stays in place there. Okay. And the logo is different. If we go back, the logo is the traditional logo. And this is also taking on our transparent header as well. So as we start to scroll, we can now see that the logo changes and it's now a sticky header. All right, let's go ahead and reset everything back. So I'm going to remove that logo. I'm going to set this to no. I'm going to go back to my header settings. I'm going to go to the transparent header and I'm going to disable it. That way we have our normal header back. And that will conclude our header builder walkthrough. Up next, we're going to go ahead and walk through the footer builder, which is very similar to the header builder. Similar to the header builder, in the Kadence theme, you also have a footer builder. The footer of your website is at the bottom of the site and typically contains the copyright information and maybe some links to some useful resources. This can be as simple or as robust as you want it to be. To access the footer builder, just simply click on the footer tab in the customizer. And when you do that, you'll notice that a tray will open up here at the bottom of the site. Your footer is going to be right above that so you can see what you're doing. And then all the available items that you can add to your footer will be here on the left. By default, you have 9 items that you can add. So there's the copyright information, footer navigation, social media links, and then 6 additional widgets. They can all be added to the footer by drag and drop. So if I want to add some widgets here, I can just drag them from the left-hand side over to the one of the columns in one of the rows. And then you can click on the cogwheel for each item to go ahead and customize that item. Clicking on the cogwheel will open up a new section on the left-hand side for that specific item. And there you'll see all its settings. For instance, in the copyright, you have an area to go ahead and change this text that you see here. And then you can also align it depending on what viewport or what device is viewing your website at the time. You can also vertical align it as well. And then just like everything else, there is a general tab and then a design tab where you can go ahead and set up your fonts, your colors, and your margins. You also have the ability to customize each row independently. So each row has a cogwheel that opens up its settings. So for instance, I can open up the settings for this top row, and under the settings, you'll see settings for the container width, depending on which device is viewing your site. So you can set these up differently for each device. And then the number of columns. So by default, the top and bottom row have 3 columns, and the top and middle row have 3 columns. The bottom row has 1. But you can also change the bottom row to any number of columns that you want. You have up to 5 columns that you can select for each row. Then you can choose the layout for that column. And then you have the column direction. So the column direction is just basically referring to how the items that you add will behave inside of that row. Currently, the items are set up to show up in line with the other items in the row. So what that means is, let's take this bottom row as an example. And in the bottom row, we have the copyright information. And let's say I wanted to add some additional items here, right? So I can either go to the footer builder and drag in an available element, or I can just click in the row, anywhere in the row, and this modal window will show up, and I'll see the available items that are available to me. Let's say I want this social icon. Okay, so here's some social icons here, and you notice how it shows up directly next to the copyright information. Okay, now what the column direction will do is it would allow you to change the orientation of this. So instead of it showing up in line, if I change the column direction, now what happens is the item will show up below the other widget item that's in there. And you can see that represented here in the row. So you can see how things are stacked on top of each other. That's changing it to a column direction. If you change it back to the row direction, then everything will show up in line like that. Okay, so this is actually pretty cool because what it'll allow you to do is it allows you to have things stacked one on top of each other in case you're building out what's called a fat footer. Or it can allow you to have things in line in case you're doing something like a special menu or a special item that you want to be side by side. Okay, let's go ahead and remove the social icon here for a second. And what I want to do is I want to talk about the other items here in the settings for the row. Okay, so the other items that you'll notice is you have column spacing. So when where you have multiple columns, by default to have 30 pixels between each column. You can go ahead and increase or decrease that as you like. There's also widget spacing. So if the widgets are in there and you have widgets side by side, you can actually change the spacing between each widget. And you have top spacing and you have bottom spacing, which is dealing with the space from the top and the bottom. So if I increase this space, you'll notice how this increases. And I do that. So now I have a much taller footer. Let's go ahead and reset that. Okay. Then you can have a minimum height for your footer as well. And just like everything else, you can mobile edit each part of this. So if I want to have different settings for my tablet or for my mobile device, I can go ahead and do that as well for the footer. Okay. So let's talk about these widgets for a moment. I think this is very important. So you notice that when I dragged in the widgets into the middle row, that there was nothing showed up. Now you can see that it recognizes that there are widgets there, but there's no information. So to be able to add information to your widgets, there are 2 ways that you can do that. You can click on the cogwheel for each widget, and then what it allows you to do is you can add Gutenberg blocks or Kadence blocks into each section. Okay, so I can go ahead and add, let's say I wanted to add a contact us heading, okay, like that. So you can now see now we're now building out the footer here. Now, what I recommend, especially with the Kadence theme, is not doing it this way. You also have the ability to add content from the back end, basically from the dashboard. And the reason I recommend that is that this space is really too small and you're not actually seeing the full interface for adding the Gutenberg blocks or the Kadence blocks. You do have this short menu over here, but there's actually more settings that will allow you to be able to customize this a little bit further. And so typically what I recommend is not doing your additions here in the customizer for your widget areas for your footer, but maybe adding the widgets that you want, setting up how many columns that you want, and then we can go back into the widget area on the back end of your website and build it out fully with all the settings that we want. So let me go ahead and demonstrate that for you right now. So if you're following along, just make sure that you have the widgets already pulled into the row where you want them to be. So in this particular instance, I have the widget 1, widget 2, and widget 3, each one in its own column in the middle row of the footer builder. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and publish this to save my work. And I'm going to exit the customizer. And then I'm going to go to the dashboard. Now I can access the widgets by clicking on the widget that shows up in the dropdown when you hover over the title of your website in the admin toolbar. Or I can just go to the dashboard, go to appearance, and click on widgets, and it'll take me to that widget area. Okay. Now when you get over here, you'll see all the sidebars that are available in the theme. So we have sidebar 1, sidebar 2, but these footer sidebars are the ones that are dedicated to those widgets that we placed in there. And if you notice, there are 6 of them. Okay, so we are working with footer 1, footer 2, and footer 3. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and open this up and click on the plus sign. And this will open up the modal for the Gutenberg blocks or Kadence blocks. Okay, and I can then select from what's available here. Now this is just a small sample. If you want to see the full array of blocks that are available, then you can click on Browse All, or you can click on the plus sign up here, and you'll see them all in here. We have Kadence blocks installed, and we'll be talking about Kadence blocks a little bit later. But here are all the blocks that are available. There's about 21 blocks that are available for you to build out your pages. We're going to be using some of them to build out this footer. And then you have the default Gutenberg blocks that comes with WordPress when you install WordPress initially. Okay. For this particular part of the video, we're actually going to be using Kadence blocks to build out our footer. Okay, so let's just go ahead and add some items in here. Okay, so what I want to add in this case, I'm going to drag in some advanced text, place that in there, and let's just call this contact. And this is what I was talking about. So remember the short menu from the front end, but over here on the right hand side, you can see that we have additional settings that is not visible if you're doing this from the customizer. Okay, so now this is all visible, and I can go ahead and now configure this to be to my liking, right? So I want this to be medium sized, and I'd like it to be all caps, and that's good enough for me for now, just for this tutorial. This is just to show what the footer builder looks like or how to build it out. Okay, now I'm going to click on the plus sign here, and I'm going to grab an icon list. And for this specific one, we're going to call this the phone. Okay, and then let's do one for an address. Okay, next let's go ahead and build out footer 2. And let's say this is going to be for our resources. Okay, so just some resource links. So I'm going to click on the plus sign, grab the advanced text. We'll call this resources. And similar to what we did at the top here, I'm going to come over here to the settings. Make sure you're under the style settings. We'll set this to medium, and then we'll make it uppercase. And then I'm also going to select an icon list, and we'll call this resource 1. Hit enter, resource 2. Okay. And maybe here for the phone number, what I'd like to do is I'd like to change this icon. So let's make it a phone icon. So just come over, just select the item over here on the right hand side under search icons. Let's just do a search for phone, and we'll just grab this one here. This looks good. And same thing for the address. Let's look for a marker, and let's grab this one. Okay. All right, so now it looks better. And then these are going to be our resources. And then in the third column for the footer widget on this one, let's go ahead and let's add a subscribe form. So I'm going to click on the plus sign here. Kadence has a pretty nice form. We're going to grab the form from there. And we want to be able to collect the name and email of the person. So we're not going to need this message part. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete that. And then over here, just select the name field and go over here to the name settings. It's going to be a text field. We'll make it required, and we will hide the label, but we'll add a placeholder, and we'll say enter first name, Okay, looks good. And then we'll do the same thing for the email settings as well. So we'll select the email, scroll up here. We want email settings. It's already required. We're going to hide the label. I'm going to put enter your email in the placeholder field. And then the last thing we want to configure here is going to be the submit button. So just go ahead and click on it and we'll type subscribe. Okay, and over here on the right hand side, under the style, you'll find the submit settings. So we'll click on the submit styles. And what I want here is I want this button width to be full like that. And that already looks pretty good. And then we just add a little bit of text. Let's do the advanced text. And we'll say sign up. And then similar to what we did up here, medium-sized font, all uppercase. Okay, so now we've added some items in footer 1, footer 2, and footer 3 of the widget section. And let's go ahead and save that. So I'm going to click on update. And then when we visit the front end of the website, you'll see now that the footer now has some items in it. Okay, so if we open up the customizer now, you can come over here to the footer builder, and you'll see now that widget 1, widget 2, and widget 3 now have some blocks in there, and our footer is now a little bit built out. And then if you want to separate the footer from the rest of the content, it's very easy to do. You can just change the color of the background. So let's go over here to this middle row, and I'm going to go under the design settings, and I'm going to look for the middle row background. I'm going to select that, and let's give it a little bit of a, let's say, darker color like that, so we can still see our text. And then you can also do the same thing for the bottom row as well. Click on the cogwheel, click on design settings, and we'll change that background to go ahead and match the fat footer. Okay, so now we have some separation between our content and our footer. Okay, and that's how you work with the footer builder. So you add some items in there, and you can build it out to be as simple or as robust as you want. So let's go ahead and reset everything back. It's very easy to do. Just go ahead and delete the widget items that you added in there. And now everything's back to the way that it was. Let's go ahead and remove that background, just reset, and we're back to where we were. Okay. Up next, we're going to be talking about the general item under the customizer for the Kadence theme. Under the general tab, you're going to find a host of additional settings for the Kadence theme. These settings deal with things like the layout, sidebar, the images, and breadcrumbs, and several other items as well. Let's quickly go through what each item covers. So first, we'll start with the layout. What this element talks about here is going to be the layout within your pages or within your post. So we have a content max width. So whenever you're looking at a page, for example, this is the content area of that page. And each page has a content max width, meaning what is the width when you're looking at a page that is going to be containing the content. And you can see over here, it's going to start from this edge over here, and it's going to stretch all the way across here and leaving a little bit of room on the sides of your browser. Same thing here in the header. Okay, that's what this controls. So if I want to extend that and make that a little bit bigger, I can just drag this over, and you can see how that's getting wider. Or I can make it smaller, and you can see how that's getting narrower. Inside of your post pages and even the custom post types, you'll have an opportunity to choose from some presets that already have the content max width set up. So this is where you can set up what that actual width will be. How many pixels wide will it be? Or if you wanted to use M's or Rems, you could do the same thing as well by just clicking on the measurement unit here and selecting whichever one you prefer. Same thing will apply to the content on the left right edge spacing. So that's talking about this spacing right here. You can either increase that or decrease it. It's entirely up to you, but this is where you would set up all your page layouts to be how you want them to be by default. So when you create a new page or you create a new post, what do you want it to look like by default? You can control the content top and bottom spacing. And then for your single post boxed, right, when you select the box option, you can select what that spacing looks like as well. You can also control the single post box shadow. So if we're looking over here, you can see this little subtle shadow underneath the content box here. That's being controlled by this setting over here. And then you can add a border radius if you want to. So there's no border radius now, but you can add a border radius. So let's say we wanted to add 20 pixel border radius to this. You can see how this is starting to become curved on the edges there. And then this is talking about the archive grid boxed spacing, right? So the archive grid is referring to anytime you have a blog post and you're looking at a category, or if you're looking at the initial setup of your theme where you're looking at the front page and you're seeing a list of posts. So if we want to see what that looks like, let's go ahead and just go back here. All right, so that's talking about this right here, right? So this is kind of, this is an archive page that we're looking at when you first initially load your theme. So if we go over to General, go to Layout, we scroll down over here to Archive Grid Boxed. That's what this is talking about here. So the spacing between each grid is about 2 rems. And then there's a little subtle shadow over here. You can see that. And this setting will control that shadow. So if I want the shadow to be a little bit more prominent, I can just increase it like that. And now we can see the shadow a little bit more. Okay. If I want to add a border radius to this, I can also do that. So let's go ahead and add 20 pixels. You can see now there's now a border radius. Let's go ahead and reset everything back. All right. And then under the general settings, you also have the sidebar settings. So if you're using a sidebar on your site, then this is where you can set up the width and the widget spacing within that sidebar. You can also choose to make it a sticky sidebar so that when you're scrolling, then the sidebar stays in place and the rest of the content continues to move adjacent to it. There's also design settings for your sidebar as well, where you can change colors, fonts, and many other things as well. Then you have your images set up. There's only one setting here, basically the border radius of your images. And then there's a scroll to top option. So scroll to top is going to be an icon. If you enable this, it's typically an icon that shows up in the bottom corner over here. And a place where you'll be able to see that's probably on the pages. And see how as I scroll, there's a icon right over here. That's what the enable scroll to top does. And what this does is when people click on this, it scrolls you back to the top of the page. This is where you can go ahead and configure the look and feel of that. So you can choose the arrow type that you want, the size of the icon. You can make it larger or keep it small. Where it's oriented, left or right. By default, it's typically on the right, and that's a good place to have it. But if you want to have it on the left, you can do that as well. And then the offset, meaning how far away is it from the edges of your screen. And then the visibility, is it going to be available for desktop users or mobile users or both? This is where you can make all those settings. And then like everything else, it also has its own design settings as well. Okay, let's go ahead and toggle that off. And then you have your 404 page layout. So your 404 page is just like any other page, but you can also choose the layout for that page. So here we have the normal, narrow, full width, left sidebar, and right sidebar. So this gives you some configuration options for your 404 page. Now the 404 page is typically a page that shows up when people try to visit a link on your website that does not exist. So typically it would say something like, oops, you've reached a place where we don't have any information or content, and click here to go back or click here to do a search. But the configure for that page is over here and how that looks. Okay. Then we have the comments, where you can choose to move comments, your comments input above the comments list, or remove comments from the website field. So also here you have breadcrumbs, which will allow you to choose where your breadcrumbs are coming from. So if you keep it at default, then you're saying that you want it to come from the theme itself. But sometimes people have SEO plugins installed, and SEO plugins sometimes have their own breadcrumb format. So you can go ahead and select whichever one that you're using. And then your social links. So one of the items that are available for the footer and the header is a social icon widget. So if I go back, let's go back here. Let's go back to the header as an example. And you see over here where we have the social icon. I'm going to drag that here in the middle. So here's our social icons. When you access the settings for this, you have the ability to configure the icon itself, but within here isn't the ability to actually add the link to that icon. So whichever one that you're using, you don't have the ability to add the link. So you can go ahead and set the social links. So if you click on set social links from the settings here, it'll take you to the social network links. So I can then add my Facebook link, my Twitter link, my Instagram link, and then these will now become functional. But you can also get to this through the general tab as well. So here in the general tab, there is the social links, and that will take you directly there to go ahead and add your social links, so that when you're dragging in that social icon widget, it's already linked to your social networks. And then the final tab here under the general settings is going to be your performance. So you can enable Lightbox for your images, load Google Fonts locally, or enable CSS preload to get more performance from your website. The next item is going to be your post and pages layout. So we're looking at a page layout right now, but this is where you can set up how the pages and posts of your website will look like. You can also set up how your archive pages is going to look like as well. If you take a look at the pages layout, it controls everything from the title. So over here, we're looking at the title of the page, and this is the content area of the page. So that look and feel is being controlled by the settings over here in the customizer. You can choose to hide your page title entirely if you want to, or you can have it show. If you choose to have it show, you can also choose how you want it to show. So in one option right now, we have it at the above content option, but you can also have it show up in content, which means it will be inside the content container like this. I prefer to have it above content, so it's just distinct and easy for the user to see. And then you also control the title container width. So the standard width is going full width right now, but you can set it all of it to be full width. So remember, anytime you're doing anything in the customizer, you're setting up for the entire website, but you still will have these options on each page and post and custom post type individually. Okay. This is the alignment for your title. This is the how tall do you want this area to be. So right now it's at 200 pixels, but you can also choose to have it be taller, or you can have it be smaller. It's entirely up to you. And then the title elements. So what items do you want in this title area? Currently right now we can see the title itself, but you can also toggle on to show your breadcrumbs by clicking on the eye icon over here. So if I click on this eye icon, then it's now showing me the breadcrumbs for this page. And you can configure this further by choosing to show the post title in the breadcrumb, right? So if I don't want to show this sample page again, I can just toggle that off and it'll only show me the next page back. Okay, let's keep that on. And then the meta information for this page is hidden by default. You can also toggle that on. And now you have your meta information. So the author and the date is now showing for this page. Now, typically on pages, you don't show this information, so you can toggling this off is totally fine, right? You can also drag and drop where each thing appears. This is where you're going to set up the default page layout for your site. So this area, again, remember, this will set up your entire website. So anytime you create a page or post, what you're saying here is that you want it to start off at whatever setting you have over here. And then from within that page, you'll have an option to make additional changes or have a different setting if you want to. So these are the page layouts that are available: normal, narrow, and full width. You can have a page with a left sidebar if you want, or a page with a right sidebar. But any of these settings that you select is what the default page or post will look like. Okay. You can over here choose the default sidebar. So the Kadence theme comes with 2 sidebars. So you can choose to have sidebar 1 or sidebar 2, and whatever widgets you have in those sidebars are what's going to show up on the page. The content style by default is boxed, which means everything's contained inside of a box. So you can see some spacing and padding around the content, but you can choose it to be unboxed. So you won't see any of that spacing. It just goes end to end from one end of the screen to the other end of the screen. Let's keep it boxed. And then over here with the content vertical padding, that's addressing this padding space right here and this padding space at the bottom. So you can disable that and have everything be flush against the header, or you can choose to have only the top have padding or only the bottom have the padding. I like to keep this enabled. And then again, this setting is also available on a post and page and custom post type basis. So you can go ahead and make that setting different inside of the actual page itself. This is where you can choose to show the featured image, or you can choose to show comments on your pages. Okay. If we go back, you have the single post layout, and you'll see that the settings are pretty much identical with a few distinct differences. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the initial page here. And let's go ahead and select our Hello World post over here. Okay, so this is what a post looks like. And if we go to the post pages layout, single post layout, you can see over here we have similar settings. So I can choose to hide my title, which I don't recommend doing, but there may be a case where you want to do that. And then I can also choose how the post layout will look like. So right now it's in content, but I can also choose it to be above content like that, where the title is above the content of the post. All right, and then you have your post title alignment, so where you want this aligned. And the difference is going to be on the elements. So you have a little bit more elements on the posts, on your blog post post type. So we have breadcrumbs, which are hidden by default, but you can turn that on if you want to. So now you have your breadcrumb right over there. And then you have categories, title, the meta information, and the excerpt. You can toggle these on and off, and you can organize how you want these to be. So for instance, if I want my meta information to be at the very top, I can just go ahead and drag that to the top here. Right, and my meta information is now at the top. And then again, similar to the pages, we have the default post layout. You can see here that the posts by default are in a narrow layout, but if you prefer that to be wider, you can go ahead and select either the normal, or you can select a full width. And then if your post is going to have a sidebar, you have two to choose from, sidebar 1 or sidebar 2. And then your content style can be boxed or full width. So right now it's boxed, but I can also make it full width so that it looks like the entire page is consumed with that post. Same thing with the content vertical padding. You can enable, disable, have it on the top, or have it only on the bottom. You can choose to show a featured image, which is toggled on by default. So if this had a featured image, we'd be able to see it. And then you can choose the positioning for that featured image. So you can have it be above the post, behind the post, or below the post. And then here you can control the width of your featured image ratio. You can choose to show your post tags. And then here are additional options for you to be able to show the post navigation and show related posts, and then how many related post columns you'd want. And then right now it's toggled on. So those related posts, if they were there, they would endlessly loop if you had multiple posts, but you can choose to turn that off here. You can choose to hide your comments, and you can also choose to show the comment date or hide that as well. The final item under the post pages layout is going to be your archive layout. An archive is just a area where you have a page where you have the collection of posts, and you're seeing them either in the grid, or you maybe have them set up as a masonry grid, but you're seeing multiple of these, for instance, posts. So if we go over here to the archive layout, similar to the post and pages, you get to be able to set up how this page looks by just choosing some settings. Very similar. So you have your container width, you have your archive title and layout. A good example of this, if we go to the archive, for instance. So you can control where the title is. So right now it's above the content. We can choose to have it in content where it's showing up inside. Okay. You can choose the alignment, the minimum height of the area, and then the title element. So right now we only have the title and description turned on, but if you wanted to have breadcrumbs here as well, you can just toggle that on and you'll see the breadcrumbs. Then this is the archive page layout, which is dealing with this content area over here. You can choose to have a sidebar, either sidebar 1 or sidebar 2, and then your content style. So right now this is a boxed style, so we can see each individual post excerpt. But if you want it to be unboxed, you can go ahead and select this option, and then each item will still be there, but you're not going to see that boxed effect. You can choose how many archive columns. So right now this is set up for 3. So if I had up to 3 posts on here, I would see 3 of them in a row. You can also choose to have them be up to 4, or just have 2, or just have 1. And then your post item elements is addressing this specific post excerpt and what elements show up in the excerpt. So right now it's set up to show your featured image. So if this had an image, there would be an image first, and then the category that the post is coming from, and then the title of the post, which is over here, the meta information, the excerpt of the post, and then a read more. Some of these have additional configurations. So for instance, your read more, you can change this label to say something else. It could be learn more, right? So it could be learn more, or it could be continue. Some people say continue. Okay, but this is where you would make that change. Okay, let's go back. The next item in the customizer is going to be your search results. And these are just page settings again, very similar to the posts and pages. You would essentially just select how you want your search results page to appear. And then you have every other item that shows up after the search results has to do with things that are already default in WordPress. So for instance, your site identity. This is where you can add your site title, and you can also add your favicon, which is the little icon that you see in your browser tab that identifies a website. So you can select that icon from here and choose whatever you want that to be, right? So let's say I want it to be this, and maybe I just want this portion to show, and crop that image. And now I have this as my favicon for my website. So people can easily identify my website if they have multiple tabs open. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And then here we have the setup for your menus, where you can create the menu for your website and set up the locations where they appear. Then you remember the widgets section, but we're not really going to be able to do anything here on this theme. So it's always better to just do it on the back end. So, but it does tell you how many widget areas you have and how to navigate to the pages where you can add those widgets. Then you have your home page settings, which is just basically where you can set up what people see when they get to the home page of your website. They can either choose to see your latest post, which is the setting that it is right now, or they can choose a static page if you have created a custom home page for your website. And then the last thing here in the customizer is going to be your additional CSS. So if you know CSS, this is where you can add that code and further customize any of the elements or items or parts of the page that you want to, using some CSS code. Okay, and that will conclude the walkthrough of the ability to customize the Kadence theme using the customizer. What we're going to talk about next now is we're going to dive into the actual pages of the site and the post as well, and creating pages and creating posts using Kadence blocks. We're going to be talking about specifically the new version of Kadence blocks. There's been a new revamp to Kadence blocks, and we're going to be exploring the settings and the new layout of that. And then we're going to be building out some pages and building out some posts as well. So in WordPress, the process of creating a page or a post is actually very easy. And depending on the theme that you have installed, that's usually what's going to determine the interface that you use to create your pages, or it's going to determine the options that you have when you go to create a page. Now, in this case, we're using the Kadence theme, and we have Kadence blocks installed. So what we're going to be looking at here is the process of creating a page when you have the Kadence theme and Kadence blocks installed. Okay, so if we go to the dashboard and we want to create a page, just go to Pages, click on Add New. You'll be presented with the page editor or the page creation interface. With the Kadence theme installed, you have certain settings that will be available to you that may not be available to you in other themes. So every theme does it a little bit differently, but typically they follow the same format. So in general, what you'll have is you'll have this top bar at the very top, and the first item that you see over here, this is called the block inserter. When you click this open, you will see all the blocks that are available to you to build out your page. Depending on the plugins you have installed, you may have more or less blocks. Now, in this case, we have Kadence blocks installed, which means we have 21 additional blocks that are available to us, in addition to the default WordPress Gutenberg blocks that just comes when you install WordPress initially. Okay. What we'll be talking about in this video are the Kadence blocks. All right, so that's the block inserter. Over here, what this is the tools bar. Okay, so this will allow you to basically edit the different interactions for selecting and navigating or editing your blocks. Okay, this will be your undo or redo icons when you make changes to your page. And then over here, this is the list view for your blocks. And when we start adding blocks to our page, this is where they're going to be listed to show you a nice little outline of the blocks that make up your page. Now, because we have the Kadence theme and Kadence blocks installed, we actually have access to a design library. And we'll come back to this in a bit. But basically, the design library has pre-made blocks and patterns that you can use to essentially create your page very, very quickly. We'll talk about this a little bit later. Then over here on the right hand side, you have the Save Draft button, the Preview button, the publish button to be able to save your work. And then this toggles between showing the block settings and the page settings. So you can either hide this so you can have a more distraction-free interface, or you can open it up when you want to access the page settings or the block settings. Right next to that are going to be your page settings from Kadence. Okay, so these page settings over here help you configure what this page is going to look like. And if you pay close attention, you'll see that this is very similar to the page layout settings that we saw in the customizer earlier on in the video. So remember when I said that you actually have the ability to go on a page by page basis and make layout changes, title changes, and content style changes. Even though you've set it up globally in the customizer, you can actually granularly set up different settings for individual pages if you want to. The next icon in the top bar here is going to be the Kadence blocks controls. And this is where you're going to see additional blocks controls. You can add additional colors. So remember I talked about the palette and having only 9 colors. If there's an additional color you want to use and have access to, you can add that color here in the color palette. This is also where you can control the blocks that are available to you. So there are 21 blocks that are available to you when you install Kadence blocks. You can choose to have some of these available or not in your options to select. So that's entirely up to you. Okay. Then you have the import and export block settings. So whatever settings you set up for your blocks, if you would like to create an export to use in a different site, then this is where you can go ahead and export that. Or if you have them already and you want to import them, you can import them here as well. Save you some time. And then if you've made several changes, you can go ahead and reset your block defaults over here so that everything is back to the way that you once have had it. Okay. Now the ellipsis at the very end here, okay, this ellipsis is more for WordPress, and depending on what you have installed, that's going to determine what some of these options are. But essentially, we have this top toolbar, right? And what this top toolbar does is it allows you to access all the block and document tools in a single place. Then there is a spotlight mode, and I'll show you what this looks like in a bit. There's spotlight mode. So spotlight mode, if you select spotlight mode, then you're only going to be seeing the things that you are working with here, right? So notice how the title is now, anytime I highlight something, I select something, everything else grays out, okay? So that is spotlight mode, all right? So let's go back here and you can toggle this on and off. Then you have full screen mode. At full screen mode, that's where we were before. So full screen mode basically removes the admin toolbar and the dashboard menus. So if you toggle this on, all that goes away and you have much more distraction-free editing. Okay, and then here where it says distraction-free, if you turn this on, then it takes off everything and you can really focus on just the page itself. Now, I typically don't recommend this simply because when you do this, then you really only have this here to select from and all your other settings are now missing. Okay, so this is typically good for people who like to write in their posts and they don't want any of those distractions there to distract them. If you want to bring it back, just move your cursor to the top of the browser and you'll see the toolbar, this top toolbar. Click on the ellipsis and then you can go ahead and turn that off. Okay, when you turn it off, then all our stuff comes back. All right. And then we have you can choose to have the visual editor, or if you like to look at the code editor. So right now we operate in the visual editor, but there is a code editor. So if you prefer to write code, then you can do that here. I like to use a visual editor, and sometimes I use a code editor for debugging. Then here are your general page settings. So remember this, we went over here before. You can actually access that from here. And then the Kadence blocks controls is over here. Okay, so it's just navigating you through these items. All right, and then you can manage your usable blocks. If you want to see the keyboard shortcuts, that's over here. There's a welcome guide. You want to copy all the blocks on the page, you can just do that through here as well, and then help and preferences. Okay, so now that we've looked at that interface, let's take a look at the individual options that are available to you when you're creating a page. So when we create a page, you can set up this page, and to do that, you can go to the page settings. That's this icon right here. When you select the page settings, you can choose whether this page will have a transparent header or not. You can choose how the page title will display. So by default, we have the page title displaying, but if you would like to disable it, you can disable it over here. Okay. You will choose your page layout. So right now this is set up to the default. You can change that to normal, you can change that to narrow. So you can see here, it's much more narrow for this page. You can choose to have it be full width, which is most likely what we're going to be using, because when you're building out a page, usually you're building out a landing page or a home page or an about page, and you want to be able to have use of the full screen. Then there's the left sidebar and the right sidebar. Okay, set that back to default for now. The content style is you're choosing whether you want this to be boxed, which is what it is by default now. So this is the boxed layout. You can also choose for it to be unboxed, which is basically your content area remains the same. So it's still the same width, but you don't have that padding around the content area when it's unboxed. Then your content vertical padding. So we saw this in the customizer. You can enable or disable this, have it only for the top or the bottom. And then you can choose to show your featured image or disable it. You can also disable the header entirely and disable the footer entirely, just in case you're doing something like a landing page and you don't want to have those items there. Or you may have a custom header and a custom footer that you want to use. Okay, and those are all the page settings. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to start actually building out a page, and we're going to add some blocks to our page, and then we're going to look at those settings. So now let's go ahead and create a page. And what I want to do is I'm going to take this from the top. So let's go ahead and exit out of this, and in your dashboard, you're going to see pages, all pages, add new. We're currently looking at all pages. And what we're going to do is click on the add new button. So you can click on this one here, or you can click on the link here. Both of them will take you to the same place. Now we are in the page creation editor. And what we're going to do is we're going to title our page. Let's just call this home page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to go ahead and publish it now, so I can show you what this looks like by default. So let's go ahead and view this page. So when you view the page, what you're looking at now is whatever you have set up in the customizer for your pages. So this is the default layout of this page. So what we're looking at is the title, right? Or what I like to call the page header. So you have the title in a page header, and then you have the content area and nothing else. Okay, so what we want to do is we actually want to set up this page for us to build the page using Gutenberg blocks or the Kadence blocks. And right now it's not really set up for that. So let me show you how to go ahead and set it up. You're going to click on edit page from the front end of the page here, or you can just go back to the dashboard and select the page from the list. When you get here, we're going to go over to the right and click on the page settings. It's going to be this icon right here. If you click on the page settings, then you're going to see all those settings that I showed you earlier on before. For the transparent header, we're going to leave that alone. For the page title, I'm going to go ahead and disable that. I don't want to have that page title there. For the page layout, I'm going to set this to full width, and that's going to allow me to have the full width of the page to be able to make my changes and my edits too. For the content style, I want this to be unboxed, so I don't want it contain any box. That way the inside container and the outside container are both pushed to the outsides of the browser. For the content vertical padding, I'm going to go ahead and disable that. That way there's no padding at the top and no padding on the bottom. And then everything else I'm going to leave alone. So when I go ahead and update this now, and if we take a look at the page, you'll notice that now we have full control of the entire page. And now we can go ahead and start adding the blocks to the page to build out what this home page is going to look like. Now, before we continue, what I want to do is I want to set this page to be my actual home page. Currently, right now, if you go to the home page of the site, it's still set to the archive page for all the blog posts. So to do that, just go to your dashboard, go to settings, go to reading, and select a static page option under your home page displays. And then for the home page, I'm going to select my home page and then click on Save Changes. And now when we visit the front end of the website, it'll be that page that we created. Okay. And then from here, what I want to do now is I want to start building out my page using Kadence blocks. So from here, you can click on Edit Page, or if you want to, you can go back to the dashboard again, go to Pages, click on All Pages, and select the home page from here. Click on Edit. And now we are in the editing interface again. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start adding blocks to build out our page. To do that, you can click on the block inserter, and that will show you all of the blocks. Another option that you can use is you can also click on this plus sign. You'll see this all across your page every time you add a block. If you click on the plus sign, it'll show you a few blocks, just maybe the most recent blocks that you've used. And you can then click on Browse All if you need more blocks, and that'll open up the block inserter again. So, but you can add blocks from either one of those options. You can drag and drop blocks in, or you can just click to add the block. It'll add it in there for you. There are many ways for you to go ahead and add the blocks in there, but adding blocks to your page is very simple. Now, this idea of building out a page with blocks, it's very easy to understand. You basically just create different sections, and then you add the relevant blocks to that section to be able to build out the page. Okay. Now, before we do that, what I want to do is I just want to point out what some of the core blocks are that you use, core building blocks that you'll use to build out your page. Okay. So let's go ahead and open up the block inserter and take a look at these blocks. When you take a look at the Kadence blocks, as I mentioned before, there are 21 different blocks that you can use. So basically, this will allow you to be able to build out any page that you want. We have the row layout block. What the row layout block does is it gives you a container block. It's a very powerful container block, and it allows you to create a layout that can have anywhere from 1 column all the way to 6 columns. Okay. It also has access to the design library, and the design library is a pattern library that comes with Kadence. And if you were to click on this, for instance, if I clicked here, or if you clicked here, it will open up the design library. And in the design library are patterns and pages that are already put together that you can pull into your page if you want to. Okay. Now, it's very easy to do. Just go ahead and select. You have different options and different types of blocks that you can pull from. But let's say I wanted a hero section as an example. I can either create one from scratch, which we're going to do, by the way, or I can just pull one that's already created over here if it fits what I already had in mind. So let's say I wanted a hero block like this. I can go ahead and click on this one, and what it'll do is it'll pull it in to my page, and very quickly you already have a hero block ready to go. Okay, so the design library actually helps you save a lot of time if you already have a layout that's similar. So right now I just pulled in that hero block. So next, let's say I wanted some columns to support that block, then maybe I can pull in, let's go ahead and let's grab this one. So here's some columns. Now we're using the free version of Kadence. So you'll notice that in the design library, you have both free and pro blocks in here, right? So, and there are different ones, right? The ones for testimonials as an example, and then there are some that are just for different sections. Okay, so you can see me pulling in these blocks. I just wanted to show that before I actually show you the custom way of doing it. But again, it's very, very easy to do, and all you would need to do from this point is just go ahead and make your own modifications, change the image, and you're pretty much good to go. Now, I personally prefer to create my own pages from scratch, but that's just me. You may like to pull in blocks, and even I sometimes use these sometimes as a great starting point. They make great starter areas. What's great about it is whatever you pull in, you can also further customize. You're not relegated to the layout that you already see over there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of this. And the way to do that, you can just open this up in list view, and you'll see the outline of everything that you've pulled into this page. I will just select the first one, hold down the shift key, click on the last one, and then go to the ellipsis that opens up here and click on remove blocks. And now the blocks are gone. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start dragging in our own blocks. So I'm going to open up the block inserter, and we just looked at the row layout. The next block that we have here is the section block. This is another container block as well. Typically this can go inside of a row block, or it can actually stand alone by itself. And the settings are Flexbox settings. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Then you have the accordion, advanced gallery, advanced buttons, advanced text, countdown, count up, a form block, Google Maps block, an icon list, info box, advanced image, Lottie animations, post for your blog post, a show more block, which will allow you to hide some content and then reveal that content using a button, a spacer and divider to create spacing between your sections, a table of contents, tabs, and testimonial block. And then everything else here is from WordPress. And some of these blocks are duplicated in WordPress, but the difference between the Gutenberg default blocks and the Kadence blocks is that the Kadence blocks give you far more capability, far more flexibility, and way more settings and options than the traditional default WordPress blocks. So let's go ahead and start building. So we're going to start off with a container block, and my favorite container block to use is the row layout. So let's go ahead and select that. And that's now placed into our page here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick let's pick a 1-column block. Okay. So this is my 1-column block, and I just want to walk through what's contained within this row layout. So now that we have the row layout is a container block that can contain other blocks. And when you select it, you'll see over here where you have what I like to call the short menu. And this menu allows you to set up the orientation, maybe copy some settings of the block. And then over here on the ellipsis are everything else that has to do with controlling things around the block. You can copy the block, you can duplicate it, you can edit it as HTML, copy its styles, paste its styles, you can lock it, and you can create a reusable block out of it, or you can remove it entirely. Okay. The row block has a outer row, and then it has a section on the inside. So if I click here and I select the row block, I'm in the outer row right now. And you can tell when you look over here to the right, it says row layout. But inside of it is another section. So if I click on the section, you can now see that I've selected the section. Another way to do this is to open this up in list view. And if you open it up in list view, you'll see that we have that row layout we dragged in. And you can open this up and you'll see inside of it is a section in there. The section actually will contain the additional blocks that you add. And you can select these very easily by clicking on the one that you want. Okay, let's talk about the outer row. So this outer row block here, I'm gonna go ahead and select this and let's just close this. The outer row over here, if you hover around it, one of the things that you'll notice is you'll see this green visual indicator. This is telling you that there is padding around this block, right? There's small padding around the block. You can control this padding, or what may be known as the spacing here. You can control the spacing on the right hand side here under the settings. Under the settings, the first one that you'll see here is the layout settings. The layout settings will show you how many columns are in the block, which you can change. So right now we have 1 column. We can increase this to 2 columns, or 3, 4, or 5, or 6, right? Let's go ahead and make that 1 again. Okay, and then you have here the row gutter. What the row gutter is talking about is there's the ability to add another row here. So if I select this row and I click on this plus sign, okay, it's going to add another section. And you can see there's a gutter between the two of them. All right, now if I select the row again and I have a row gutter of medium, I can actually increase the size of that gutter. And if this is not big enough, then I can click on this icon and set a custom size. So let's say maybe I want this to be 100 pixels tall. Then I can do that as well. Okay, that's what the row gutter does. Let's go ahead and set this back to what it was, which was 60. And I'm going to go ahead and remove that section. Okay, so we're back to our regular row. Okay. All right. Under that, you have the content max width. So right now, the way this row is set up, it's going to span the full length of the page. And to make this easier to understand, let's just go ahead and put a border around this. I'm just going to put a very light border so we can see what we're doing. And when you view the page, you can see that the row spans the full width of the browser. Okay. Now let's go back and edit here. And so what we were looking at earlier is the content width from theme. So what that is talking about is the actual section. So right now the row spans the full width of the browser and the section also spans the full width of the browser. But if I want that to be more centered and kind of have a more boxed look, then I can toggle this on and it will automatically bring it into the center for about 1290 pixels, which is the setting that we have in the customizer. This will basically center my content. So this will allow any information that I have in here to be contained within this box. All right. So to give that as an example, let's go ahead and add some text in here. And I'm going to add some really long text. Okay. And let's just paste the text in there. Okay. So here's our text. All right. And then I'm going to go back to my row and let's turn the content max width off. Click on update. And when you view the page, you can see that the text spans the full width of the page. If I click on edit page, I select my row again, and I now turn on the content max width. You can see now things are more centered. Click update. And when we view the page, you can see now that everything's now in the center. Okay. All right, that's awesome. So next we have the dividers. So you can have a top divider. Just it's very easy. Just select what kind of divider that you want. If this is something you would like to use in your page, there are several options to choose from. So I can maybe select that one, and I can give it a color so it's visible, and that's the divider right there. Let's go ahead and remove that. And then you also have a bottom divider as well, where you can kind of do the opposing thing. And here we go. And then all the settings for the dividers are right here as well. Okay. So all that is contained within the general layout of your row. The next tab over is going to be your styles. So this is where you can basically style the row the way that you want it to look. If we look at that tab, you will find the background settings. You'll find the type of background that you want to use. So we can have an image background, or you can have a video background, or you can have a color background, or you can have a gradient background. Color background is very easy. Just select a color that you like and color the background however way that you want it. The gradient background is also very easy as well. You can add a couple of colors here, and now you have this nice gradient. The image background, which is the most popular type of background that people use, just allows you to add an image. So we can come over here, select an image, and let's pull in one of these images. So here's now an image on our background. And if we want to see this text, we can go ahead and add some color to it. And now you can see the text. Okay, all right. And then the next one is going to be your video background. So basically you can upload a video and have that video play in the background here. Or if you have a HTML5 video file URL, you can go ahead and paste that URL in here as well. And then here are all the settings for that video. Also under the style settings here, let's go ahead and set this back to color and reset everything. Under the style settings here, you have background overlay settings. So we have background settings, and then there are background overlay settings. So the way this works is basically if you have, let's say we have an image in here, and let's just pull in a nice image like that. Okay, so here's an image, and we want to have an overlay for this image. So we can go to the overlay settings, and we can say we want an overlay color for this. So let's just overlay it with something light like that. And then you can set the opacity for this. So I can make this a little bit more opaque, or I can make it completely transparent. It's entirely up to you. Also, you can use a background image as your overlay. Okay, there are certain cases where this makes a lot of sense. Create a much more dynamic looking, interesting background, abstract background if you want to. And same thing, you can change the opacity of these. See how it changes. Okay, you can create some pretty cool effects doing that. Also, you will have your border settings underneath the style settings here, and you saw me use that earlier on. And then we also have our text colors for that row. So you can set up, you can say, hey, any text that I add in here, I want the color, to be white, right? And so it will by default take up a white color for whatever thing you put into that row, or whatever item you put into that row. And then you can actually go into the specific block itself and then set up different colors if that's what you want to do. But the overarching outside block can actually control the color of the text. So just be aware of that. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and reset everything for our row here, because this isn't actually how we're going to create this. So I'm going to come over here, and we're going to get rid of the border that we had. I'm going to remove the image by clicking on the X under the background settings, and I'm going to delete this heading text. Okay, so now we're back to our row. All right. Next, we have our advanced tab, and under the advanced tab, this is where you're going to find the padding, margin, structure settings, visibility settings, your block defaults. You can also add custom CSS and some advanced settings as well. Okay, so let's go through this real quickly. The padding and margin, ever since the update to Kadence Blocks 3.0, is now visual. So you have a visual idea of where your padding is. All you have to do is hover over the setting, and it'll show you. So you can kind of see the green around the on the inside of the block. Now, padding is spacing inside of the element, and margin is spacing outside. So think of margins as pushing things out and padding as pushing things in. So what you can do here is you can change your padding using this slider to just simply drag, right? And this is actually really cool, because what this will allow you to do is it'll allow you to have much more precise settings. So I can say, okay, all my padding, I want all my padding to be 3XL. on the top, and on the bottom, I want it to be 3XL as well. So this makes it very quick and easy, and you have sort of this nice, more uniform padding going on. If you want to control the right and left padding, it's very easy. Just click inside of the field and do the same thing. Just drag it across and set it to whatever your heart desires. Okay, so here we are. So now we have our padding set up like that. Another way to do it, if your padding is exceeds what's allowed inside of the field here, is you can also set up custom sizing or custom padding by clicking on this icon, and then you can go back to you doing it using pixels, rems, or percentages, or view height or view width. So you have lots of different options. Any kind of padding that you want to set up, you can. Okay, and then if you want to control everything, you want to link all these together so that you're putting in one setting for all four sides. Then you can go ahead and link the fields and then decide on what you want this to be. So, I might want this to be 300 pixels, and it'll be 300 pixels all the way around. 300 pixels is a little bit much, but just wanted to show that as an example. Okay, so let's go ahead and close out the preset here. And you can also do the same thing by just dragging and setting this up however way you want. It's very, very easy to do. Same thing applies to the margin. So you're going to create some margin on the top there. We see how we're pushing things out, or from the bottom, you'll be pushing things down. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and reset everything back to what it was. Let's talk about these structure settings real quick. So under these structure settings, you're going to be dealing with the structure of this particular element. You can set a minimum height. If you have multiple columns, you can set the inner column height to be 100%, meaning that the height of the columns will span the entire height of the row. So to give you an example of that, and go back to layout, let's make this 2 rows. And let's say we have, let's give it a background color on each section. We'll talk about sections here in a minute. So right now, with the way that this is, let's say in this section, I have some text. And I'm just going to grab some text here. Okay, so here's some text, and let's go ahead and reduce how much text we have in there. And then let's do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to add some text as well. Okay, so now this is a little bit longer. So if we look at this now, you can see that this side is taller than this side. So what if I want these to match up? Okay, that's where you would go to the advanced for this row. So remember, you have to be in the row. Go to advanced. And here where it says inner column height at 100%, just go ahead and toggle that on, and you can see now that both of the backgrounds now line up. They all match up, and that's what this setting is for. Z index control is going to control the layout of your elements inside of this row, or actually of the row itself. So if you need the row to be more in front or more behind, this is where you're going to set up the Z index control. And then your visibility settings controls whether this row is visible on the desktop, tablet, or mobile. You can change this whereby if someone's on a desktop, they won't see the row, but if they're on a tablet, then they'll see it. And you can also set up user visibility settings. So maybe this row is only visible to people who are logged in. Maybe you may have some kind of protected content and you only want logged in users to see it. Or you want a different row to appear for people that are logged out. It's entirely up to you. You can also set up this row with all the settings as a default, so that the next row that you pull in automatically has the settings that you've set up here. And then there's a custom CSS option where you can actually edit the row itself. So for instance, I could say, and let's say we want to give this a red color. So I'm going to use a hex code here. Okay, so now it's red. Right, and that'll apply here. If you think this area is too small, you can open this up in a modal and go ahead and make all your changes here in a nice, comfortable modal. Let's go ahead and delete that because we don't want that actually. Okay, and then the advanced allows you to do a couple of things. One, you can set this row to be content only editing. You can also add an HTML anchor for things like linking directly to this row. So I can come over here and I can call this my hero row. And I can add additional CSS classes as well, right? So I can say I want this to be hero section. And that way I can use CSS to specifically target this row. When you add the HTML anchor like this, if you open it up in list view, it'll show it over here. This is actually a good way for you to be able to label your rows. And if you need to link to them, maybe link to them within the page, then this HTML anchor will be very important. Okay. All right, so that is everything that has to do with the row. Now, one thing I do want to point out, let's just go ahead and delete this row and let's add a new one. If you do a / and you start to type, you'll see some of the most recently used blocks that you've used. You can go ahead and select it here from the short menu. And let's just go ahead and add a new row in there so we have a fresh row to work with. So everything that we did to the outside row. Okay, inside of the row, there is a section. So we have the row and we have the section. The section also has its own settings as well. So we did the row. Let's take a look at the section. The section is contained inside of the row. And over here on the right-hand side will be the settings for that section. So under the general settings, you have your flex settings, and your flex settings determine the inner block direction of this row. So right now, everything is set up to be vertical. That means that whenever I add an item in here, so let's say I add this icon, okay, and if I want to add another item to this section, let's insert after. Let's say I want to add some text. So I'll say add some advanced text. Okay, so now I've added some advanced text. So everything is kind of stacking vertically inside of this section. All right, now if I select the section itself, let's open this up in list view, open this up, let's select the section. If I go over to the settings and I no longer want it to align this way, I can change it to a horizontal alignment. So now everything is aligning in line with each other, next to each other. Okay, I can choose the gutter for that alignment, right? So how much spacing is going to be between each item. And then I can choose how the content will be set up. So right now it's inherited to set up to be at the start of the element, right? I can change that to be at the center, like that, right? Or at the end. I can create some spacing between, so it's even space, one on each end, and space around, so that's kind of distributed evenly. Actually spacing evenly. This is spacing evenly, and this is just space around. Okay. You can choose the alignment, text alignment, and then another thing that's really cool about sections is you can create an overlay link. Now, when you create an overlay link here, so I add a link here, and that means that when you click on the section, it takes you somewhere. When you do that, essentially what happens is anything that is inside of the section that was linked, that link will no longer work. This link will basically override any other links that are inside of the section. So just be aware of that when you set up an overlay link in a section. The next section for the section block is the style. So under the style, same thing as the row. So you can have a background for your row, but you can also have a background for your section. So you can have a background image, or you can use background color, and you can even use a gradient if you'd like. It also has a background overlay attribute as well. You can set up border styles that include the border and also border radius for your inside section. And then you can also set up a text color for that section as well. Okay, it's very, very robust. And then there are advanced settings as well, where you have your padding and your margin for the section. There's also a structure setting for it, where you can set up the minimum height, the z-index control. You can change the mobile collapse order. So if I had multiple items in here and I'm doing some mobile editing, so I have multiple columns, which is multiple sections, I can switch the order of it here. And then there are sticky settings, and I'll show you how to use this in certain situations, where you can make the section sticky so that if you're scrolling, that section stays in place while the rest of the page scrolls. Then there's visibility settings, so you can hide this on desktop, hide on tablet, hide on mobile. And then there are block default, where whatever you set up for your sections here, that's what the default will be. Custom CSS, which we took a look at earlier on, and then under the advanced, you can set up an HTML anchor for your section, as well as add additional CSS classes. Okay, so now this is very important to keep in mind whenever you add a row to your page. So let's remove this. Let's take this all out. Whenever you add a row to the page, it's going to include the row itself, which is on the outside, and it's going to include a section, which is going to be on the inside. Okay, so if we're going to build out something using this row, just know that everything that you're adding to the row is actually inside of the section itself. So let's go ahead and build out a hero section from scratch using everything that we've learned about these settings. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to start from the beginning. I'm going to open up the block inserter. I'm going to add a row, so I can just drag it in here if I want. And I want a 1-column row. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make this 1-column row full width. A way to do that is over here in the short menu. If you open up the alignment, you can set this to full width. When you set this to full width, there are actually additional settings that become available to you, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So now it's full width, so I know everything is end to end. Then the other thing that I want to do with this row is I want to make sure that the inside of the row is centered and that it is taking up a content max width that I've set up in the theme. To do that, I can go over here to Advanced, go to Structure Settings, and I can toggle it on here. Another way to do it is in the short menu, I can go ahead and click on this icon, which is the inner content width, and I can toggle it on here as well. Okay, so by doing that, everything is now centered on the inside of this row. The next thing that I want to do now is I want to go ahead and add a background to this row. Okay, so I'm going to select the row, make sure I'm in the Layout tab, make sure I'm in the Style tab, and then I'm going to do a background color. And I'm just going to use, let's just use one of the colors in the color palette like that, okay? And then next thing that I want to do is I want to add some information in here, right? So I want to make sure that this hero area has some info. I'm going to click on the plus sign and I'm going to add some advanced text. I'm going to go ahead and center my text, and let's go ahead and type something. We'll say this is an awesome hero section. Okay, I'm going to change the color of this, so just go ahead and select the text, and over here on the right hand side on the settings for the advanced text under style, we're going to change the color to white, and we're also going to increase the size, so I want this to be extra large. Okay, and then I'm also going to add an additional heading below it, an additional text below it. So I can do that in a number of ways. One, I can just go ahead and duplicate this by clicking on the ellipsis, click on duplicate, and then change the settings for this one over here. So what I want to do is I want this to be a little bit smaller text. Let's make this an H3, and then over here on the right hand side, we're going to make this medium. Now, one thing that I really like about the advanced text is it starts off by giving you the option of being an H tag, but you can also make this a paragraph tag, span, or a div. Okay, so I can go ahead and make this a paragraph, and it's actually even much more presentable now, right? So we have our hero text, and we have our paragraph text. Let's go ahead and add a button. So I'm just going to click right next to the advanced text, hit enter, and I'm going to do a /, and right over here we have advanced buttons. Now I'm just using a shortcut to do this. Of course, I could have very easily, I can click on the plus sign over here and do it this way, or I can open up the block inserter and go ahead and drag in an advanced button. But as you use this more and more, you'll start finding very good shortcuts to help you do things a lot faster. Okay, so I'm gonna drag that in here, and we'll say access the tutorial. Okay. So now our hero section is created. Okay, so now let's go ahead and make this a little bit more presentable. I'm going to click on update, and I'm going to view it on the front end just to see what I've done. All right, now I'm going to click on edit page, and let's select the row again. And what I want to do is add some padding. So I can actually add padding just by dragging my cursor. Let's add 3x large there, and on the bottom we'll do another 3x large here. Okay, click on update, and when we view it, yeah, it looks pretty nice. It's a very nice hero section, very simple. Let's actually go all the way, make this 5x large and 5x large there. Click on update, and here we go. This is an awesome hero section. Very, very easy to do, very, very simple. Now let's click on edit page, and let's say we want to add a 3-column section right underneath this. I'm going to click on the plus sign. I'm going to select another row layout, and this time I'm going to select 3 columns. Okay, so now I have 3 columns. I'm going to use my inner content width icon on the short menu. I'm going to set that to be the width of the theme, set by the theme. Okay, and now I can add additional elements in here to create a 3-column section. So let's click on the plus sign. And let's add an icon. So I'm going to add some text underneath the icon. just select the icon, click on the ellipsis, and click on insert after, do a /, and we'll do advanced text. Okay, and we'll say this is a heading. And then we can go ahead and hit enter, / advanced text. And we'll make this a paragraph. And I'm going to grab some text from here, paste it in, and we're just going to reduce the amount of text that we have. It's a lot of text. All right, excellent. Let's add a little bit more. Okay, excellent. And then I'm going to go ahead and center the text. And now we have a nice little section over here. Okay, so then the next thing that we can do here is if I open this up, I open up that second row layout and I select that first section. Okay, what I can do is I can add a background to it. So let's just add just a nice, simple, subtle background color. And then under the advanced, I'm going to add some padding. So I'm going to link all the sides, and then I'm just going to drag this over, and let's just add about 24 pixels there. Okay, all right. So now this actually looks pretty good. So what I can do now is I can go ahead and select the elements in here. So I can select the icon, I can do this in the list view. So select the icon, select everything that's in there, the advanced text, both advanced text. So I'm doing that by clicking on the icon, holding down Shift on my keyboard and selecting the last item that's there. It's going to formulate a group, and then I can right click over here, copy blocks, click in the + right here, add a paragraph, do a Command V, and those items will be added there automatically. Repeat that on the third column. And now I also want to have the styling of each section. So I'm going to click on this section, just click on the corner of it here, make sure that the section is selected. And then over here, this icon right here, this will allow you to copy and paste the style. So I'm going to copy the style, click on the next section, make sure to have the section selected, which I do. Click on the copy paste styles icon, click on paste styles, and then repeat it for the third column. All right, awesome. And then maybe create some spacing between these two. So I'm going to select the entire row, hover my mouse over here, drag this down to be about, let's do 4x or 3x, and do that here at the bottom. All right, and pretty soon you can kind of see how from scratch we have a pretty cool homepage layout formulating here, okay? And this is how you use the blocks to be able to create your layouts. Now, let's go ahead and edit the page. Now you notice how I created each item here singularly, one by one, right? Another way I could have done this is I could have just done another row layout here. And let's select the 3-column row layout. Let's do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and make this use the inner content width. Okay. And then I also want this to be full width all the way across. And what I could have done is I could have just done a click on the plus sign here or open up the block inserter. And I could have used an info box. So an info box is a block from Kadence Blocks that actually has all these elements in place already. And it already has all the styling and everything already done for you. It kind of saves you a lot of time. And it's a very, very versatile block. Use it a lot in my development and designs. So you can just pull in a block like this, right? Copy the block, plus sign, paragraph, and paste the block in each section. And you can see how much faster that happens. Whoops. There we go. You see how much quicker that was to go ahead and put this in here, and even the styling's a little bit better already. So you could have chosen to do it this way, but the more familiar you are with the blocks that are available to you, the more rapid you'll be at building out these pages, building out home pages. But you can kind of see how that works. And what I really like about the info box, if we access this and you look at the settings over here, there are different preset layouts that you can use, right? So you can select any one of these as your layouts, or you can create them custom yourself. You can link the box as well. And then on the styling, there are additional settings for each element. So this will help you with your, for instance, the icon, or if you choose to have an image instead, or you can even have a number or nothing at all if you want. And then the styling for the styling for the title is also here, styling for the text. So all this styling is available to you. You can make changes to this, and you can even add a button. So if I add the show learn more, there's a learn more button, and you can actually style this to be a button. So I can add a background to it, add some color to the text, and now it's a button. Okay. Yeah. So let's toggle that off. All right. So you've kind of seen how to use the row layout, the section layout, and we've also looked at a few of the blocks. And if we were to continue this, you'd basically have a full-blown homepage. And just to show you how easy it is to create a homepage using Kadence blocks, now of course we're doing this almost as a wireframe format, but if you wanted to create an actual full-blown homepage or about page or any kind of page, you could do that as well. So what do we have here? We have a 1-column row, a 3-column row. Let's go ahead and add another row. This time we're going to add a 2-column row here, and I'm going to go ahead and make this full width. I also want it to be contained, the inner width to be contained. I'm going to add, so I typically try to match whatever I have here. So on this one we have a 5x. Let's actually make this, let's agree on 3x for our sections. So there we go. And that way we can be uniform with all our rows, right? So they're always going to be 3x, and this is going to give your website that uniform, clean feel that you typically see on very professional websites. Okay, so now we've added 3x, and in this case now, maybe we want an image on this side, and we want some text and a button on this side. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna click on the plus sign, click on, go ahead and do a search for advanced image. That's gonna give you the Kadence blocks image. Select image, and let's just drag in, let's use this image. So this is going to be our image. And then a plus sign here, we're going to do advanced text. And we're going to say, I'm going to say your compelling headline here. Okay. And again, you can, on the right hand side, you can actually make changes to the size. So I can make this small, medium, large, extra large. Typically like to keep it at large. And then hit enter. We'll add another advanced text block. This block will actually be a paragraph block. We'll grab some dummy text. There we go. Okay. And keep in mind, you can add as many container blocks within the container blocks as you like, right? So for instance, I now have some text in here. I have a heading, I have some text, but what if I want some additional stuff, right? So I can go ahead and click enter from here, do a /, look for a row layout, plug that row layout in here, and maybe it's a 2-column row this time. And in here, let's go ahead and add some info boxes. So I'm going to search for the info box. Here's the info box from Kadence. Drop that in. And let's go ahead and configure this info box. So I'm going to select this right over here, move over to the right-hand side, and we're going to look at the style. Under the style, I'm going to select the container settings over here. And under the container settings, I don't want this color background. So I'm going to select the background and zero out the alpha. So now it's clear. And then under the media settings, we have an icon. I'm going to retain the icon, but I'm just going to make it smaller. So maybe 30 pixels. And then I want it to be aligned to the left and to the top. And I also want the general alignment of my info box. So under the general settings, I want that to be aligned to the left like that. Okay, now back to style. Under the media settings, what I want to do is I want to create I want the icon to be closer to the edge of the section here. So to do that, under the media settings, scroll down and look for the media padding and media margin. So here under the media margin, I can see that there's a 15 pixel margin. I'm going to go ahead and zero that out on the left. And then under the media padding, I can see that this is linked. So I'm going to unlink that. And on the left, I'm also going to zero this out. So add a 0. Okay, so now it's as close to the edge as possible. All right. And then the other thing that I want to do is I can see that there's some padding inside of this that's kind of holding everything together. So I'm going to scroll up, go to advanced for the info box, and I can see here there's some padding going on. So what I want is I want that left padding gone. So I'm going to go ahead and select the left padding and just go ahead and zero that out. And now everything's kind of flush and lined up with each other. Next, I'm going to work on the title. So select the info box, go to style, scroll down, look for the title settings. And then under the title settings, I want this title to be a lot smaller. So let's go medium on that. Okay. And then the other thing that I want to do here is I want to reduce the amount of text that I have in here. So let's just go ahead and make it only 2 rows of text. All right, and then I want to make sure that the title and the icon align correctly. So we're going to go back to the media settings. So under style, media settings, and over here I can see there's about 10 pixels of padding over there. I'm going to reduce that to 5 pixels. That brought it up a little bit. And then maybe I can also reduce the size of that icon to 25. So it's kind of more in line with the title. And then I want to bring this title a little bit closer to this, to the media here, to the icon. So under the media settings on the right-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and reduce that to 5 pixels. And here on the media margin, reduce that to 5 pixels. Okay, so now everything's a lot closer. Everything looks a lot neater. And then for my title, I'm just going to say, good subheading. All right. Okay, and that looks pretty good. And then now I'm just going to take everything that I've done here. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. And then I can just drag this into the second side of the section. And I kind of have this really cool section going on here right now. Okay, let's go ahead and update our work, view it on the front end, and we can kind of see how our stuff is coming together. Right, everything looks pretty good. Okay, let's go ahead and click on edit image, and let's make a few adjustments. So one, too much spacing here, so I'm just going to go ahead and reduce this. Let's reduce it evenly. So there we go. And then the other thing is I noticed that these are really, really close together. So what we want to do is select that row, move over here to the right, and if you look over here, you'll see the column gutter. I'm going to increase the gutter, which is going to be the space in between the two sections. So let's make that large. Okay, and so far that looks pretty good. And then I want to make sure that there's not so much spacing between these two elements, but this might just be what I'm seeing on the back end. So I'm going to save it, and then let's view the page. Okay, yeah, there's a ton of spacing over there. So let's go ahead and reduce that spacing. So I'm going to come back to the editor, select this item, move over to the right, go to advanced, and make sure that there is no margin at the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag this like that. Okay, make sure there's no margin there. Click on update. And let's view it on the front end. Okay, so now this is a lot closer. This looks a lot better. Okay, now another thing that I'm looking at as well is I'm thinking, this looks good, but it could look better if there's a little bit of some kind of separation going on here. Okay, so to create some separation, we can do that in a number of ways. We can add a border or we can add a background. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on edit page, scroll down, select the info box, click on advanced, and I'm gonna reinstate my padding that I had before. So let's make it extra small. Okay, and then I'm also going to add a background back in like that. And I'm really happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the style, select the second info box, and paste the same style. That's not the style. Let's do that again. Actually, let's undo that and select the info box, copy the style, select that info box, make sure it's the info box, and paste the style. Okay, so now I adopted the style. Didn't adopt the padding, so let's go ahead, go back to advanced, and do it that way. Okay, so now everything matches. Click on update, view the page, and everything looks really good. That looks great. So you can see how easy it is to actually put together a home page using Kadence blocks and creating a page this way. Okay, let's go ahead and create one more section, and then we'll move on from page creation here. Okay, so we just complete our home page creation here. So let's go ahead and click on Edit Page, scroll down, and let's click on the plus sign. Let's add a row layout, and this time we're going to add a 1-column row. Let's make sure that this is going to be full width. Okay, and we're also going to constrain the content to the container width from the theme. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to go ahead and add a background to this. So let's just select the row, move over here to Style, select an image, and let's use this cool mountain over here. Select. All right, and over here we can add a call to action, right? So let's click on Advanced Text, and we'll say, get started today. Okay, let's go ahead and center our text, and we'll make the color white so we can see it. We'll add a small blurb of text here. So I'm gonna do a / advanced text, and let's just grab a little bit of text this time, not so much. Paste that in, center the text, change the tag to a paragraph, add some color so we can see it. All right, so here's our text. Now you notice our text is it's long. It's spanning the full width of this of the section here. Okay, so what we want to do is want to make this a little bit tighter, and a way to do that is if you actually go back to where you're using the theme content as the inner width. Okay, you can access this from the short menu here, or you can do it here under Advanced and Structure Settings. They both work. And when you access that, what you can do is we can actually change this to a custom content width instead. So the inner content width is 1290 pixels. We actually would like this to be a little bit more tight. So let's go ahead and set this to 650 pixels as custom. And now we have a much more tighter, much more succinct and concise layout for that row and the content within that row. Okay, so this looks a lot better. And now all we need to do now is just increase our padding so that it has some breathing room. Okay, and I typically like to match what's up here, so 3x. Okay, that looks really good. And since we're telling them to get started today, let's go ahead and add a button. So hit enter, click on the plus sign here, and we can do a search for advanced button. There it is. And we'll say get instant access. And very simply, our layout is now done. Now you can kind of see how this, because of the background, how this text isn't that visible. So we can go ahead and select this row, go to the style, go to the background overlay settings, open that up, and we're going to click on the overlay color. And let's pick the strongest text color over here at 30%. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and increase this a little bit to about 50%. All right, and now we can see everything really, really clearly, okay? And so here we are, just in a few clicks with a few rows, we now have a pretty decent home page. Click on Update, view the page, and we're now in business, okay? And notice as we are scrolling, because we have our header, our sticky header in place, our header is staying in place. It's not moving, okay? And that actually creates a pretty nice effect. If you want to change that, just remember to go to the customizer, go to header, sticky header, and we can go ahead and toggle this off. Click on publish. And now when you scroll, everything will scroll alongside. And that is how you create a page very, very simply with Kadence blocks using the free Kadence theme. So now that you see how easy it is to create a homepage style or a built-out page using the Kadence theme and Kadence blocks. Next, we're going to show you how to create a post, and that's even easier. However, you may also be wondering, well, what if you're not building out a page like this, where, this is actually quite elaborate. You have a hero section, you have these columns, and you have these calls to action sections as well. What if you just want to put some content on a page? That's also very easy to do. If we go back here to the dashboard and you go to pages, all pages, click on add new, and we'll just call this a simple page. Okay, so this is just a simple page. And all you need to do is basically add your content, right? So I can just click here where it says type / to choose a block, and I can go ahead and paste in some text. It'll automatically add the default Gutenberg paragraph text for me. Or if I prefer to use my use the Kadence blocks version, then I can just open up the block inserter, add the advanced text like this, and then I can change this to be a paragraph and go ahead and copy in my text. And you just build out the page to your needs, right? So I might need some subheadings. So I just go ahead and add some advanced text, right? And add in some more text. And maybe I need an image to break things up a little bit. So I can go ahead and do a / advanced image. And I'll just select one of the images here. So let's just select this one. Okay. And if I want the image to span the full width of the area there, I just go ahead and click on full width, and now it spans the full width, kind of breaks through. Or I could just do a wide width where it just fills out the page this way. And then as far as the settings go for this page, or I can move this around, by the way. So if I want this to be maybe at the top, maybe I feel like this is better suited all the way at the top like that. So I can have the image here, I can have some content here. I can go ahead and duplicate groups of content, just select them both, click on duplicate, and now you have even more content. Okay, just like that. And so you can actually build out the page with any kind of blocks and information that you want. And then as far as the page settings go, you can leave all this as it is. So if you want to have a page title, just leave it at the default, or you could enable it if you've turned it off in the customizer. And then you choose your page layout. So I might say I just want a normal layout in this case. And as far as the content style goes, I'm going to leave it at boxed. I'm going to leave the vertical padding and bottom padding alone. And I'm happy with this page. This looks great. So go ahead and hit publish. And let's view the page. And here's our page, right? So we have our title right over here. And we have the image. And here's all our content. And it still looks nice and presentable. And you can still even customize this further if you want. So for instance, I can go back in here. And maybe I don't want this title. Maybe I don't want this title the way that it is. So I can go back to my settings, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to disable the title. And what that's going to do is going to move everything up for me. Okay, and now that everything's up, then the next thing I might want to do is I might want my title to be overlaid on top of this image. And if that's the case, then I'm just going to go ahead and delete the image. And what I will do now is I'm just going to insert a row above that. So let's go ahead and insert B4. If I do a /, I can go ahead and search for the Kadence row layout. This is the one that I want. And do a 1-column row. Select the row. Go to the row settings by clicking on the settings over here for the block. Go to style. Select an image. Let's select that same image. Okay. And let's go ahead and give this some padding so that it's a little bit taller. Oops, actually, it looks like our row is actually inside of the section. Our image is inside the section. So let's go ahead and fix that. We actually want it to be the outer row. So I'm going to select the outer row, go to style, select the image. There we go. And then I can now add some padding so I can see a little bit more of the image, and just make this, make it as tall as default will allow. And then over here, whoops, select that row, go to advanced, and maybe I want some margin at the bottom so it's not so flush against that content. And then I can put my text in here. So the title, right? So do an advanced text, and we'll call this simple page. center it, add some color so we can actually see it. So we'll make it white. Okay, and let's make it larger. Let's go with extra large or 2XL. There we go. And let's also make sure that since this is going to be the title, let's go ahead and set this to be an H1 tag. And then I may even want to add an overlay here so that I can see the text even more, just make it pop a little bit more. So I'm going to select the strongest text and just increase this to about 50%. There we go. All right, and now I have my page layout. So click on Update. And if we view the page, we can now see that we now have a page title and just some nice, simple content that your users can consume. And this is just a simple page. So everything doesn't have to be elaborate like the home page, or it can be if you want it to be. You can also have a sample page like this or a very simple page like that, okay? And so with that, that also translates to when you're creating your blog post. You also have the same versatility and the same flexibility in creating a post. Creating a post is very similar to creating a page, except this is just a different format. So if we go to the dashboard and you go to Post, you click on Add New. This is your default post layout. Things are a little bit narrow, but you can change that. If you go over here to the page settings, you have all the same settings that you can change. So you can choose to have it full width, left sidebar, right sidebar, narrow, normal, or just the default. I prefer the default when I'm creating a post. That way I can focus my reader on the content. And then you just add your information. So here, my blog post, enter your title. And then we're going to go ahead and add some content here. Typically, you would like to have, let's insert some subheadings. So insert before. We'll do advanced text. We'll call this subheading 1. Okay. And we can duplicate this and just move that down and duplicate this text, since we're doing, this is just dummy text, so it's not a real blog post. And then maybe we want to add an image to break things up a little bit. So / advanced, let's go ahead and add an image. And let's pick a different image this time. Okay, my image is in there and this looks good. Let's add one more group of text and subheading. So I'm just going to duplicate this here and do a duplicate there. Shift that down. And then let's add a list. So we can do an icon list. Okay, and we can call this list item 1 and just do a bunch of them. Let's do like 5 list items. Okay, so now we have a nice little list there going. And then we may even want to do like a little call to action. And for that, we can use an info box. So got to break out of our list here. Select this, go over here to the settings, click on the list view parent block settings, and we're going to do an insert after, and let's do an info box. Okay, so here's our info box. And let's do this layout for our info box. And we'll just say, I want more content. And whatever those instructions will be. And then let's go ahead and add learn more. And we'll change this content to say, reach out. And let's make it look more like a button. So I'm going to give it our highlight color. And let's make the text white so we can see that. All right, and let's give it a little bit more size there. And on the padding, I'm going to increase the left and right padding so we have more of a button style there. Okay, so far that looks good. Let's give it a little bit of a border radius. So let's do 4 pixels all around. Exclamation mark. Okay, so now this looks good. Let's move our icon. So go to Style, Media, and let's have our icon vertically aligned to the top. All right, and now we have this is our blog post. Okay, so that looks good. Go ahead and publish. And when we view it on the front end, you can see this is our blog post. Okay, so we have our image, our content, the list, and a call to action at the end. And then here are the previous blog posts there as well. And here's that carousel we're talking about. So the more blog posts you create, the more recent similar posts will show up, and then your comments. Okay, very, very easy to do, very easy to style. There are literally no restrictions on how you can have this. So for instance, now that I have this way, I can choose to change the way this looks. I can go to edit post, and under the post settings, I can go to featured image, and I can set the featured image to be a different image. So let's say I set it to be this one. So this is now my featured image. Okay. All right, and then I can also say under the settings, let's have the post title. Actually, that's fine. Let's go ahead and click update, and let's view what that looks like with a featured image. So here's my featured image here. Okay. All right, and now that looks pretty good. Now, if you go in the customizer, you can customize this even further. So under the customizer, on the post pages layout, if you click on the single post layout, now you'll see what we're talking about when you can have different types of layout, right? So if you keep scrolling down here and we look for the featured image, we have the show featured image toggled on, and right now it's behind the post. You can also make it above the post like that. Okay. You can also make it below the post, where it's below. It's just plugged in there as part of the post. Let's keep it behind. You can also choose to have it stretch full, so it goes all the way across the page. Okay. And then if we disable the padding on the top, the vertical padding, it actually stays flush. And we publish it. And now all our posts will look like this. So any post that we create will have this layout. Very nice, very easy, and very simple. Okay. And that is how you create a post using the Kadence theme and Kadence blocks. So we've looked at creating a blog post with Kadence. We've also looked at creating a homepage layout with Kadence, and we've even looked at creating a simple page with Kadence. But one of the benefits of Kadence is that you can actually create full-blown websites very, very quickly. If you are great at designing websites, you can use Kadence and Kadence blocks to basically build any kind of website that you want. However, Kadence also has a feature called the Kadence Starter Templates that will really help you accelerate your website building process. Let me show you how that works. Now, when you first install the Kadence theme and Kadence blocks, there's typically a prompt that asks you to install the Kadence Starter theme. Now, because we've kind of progressed through, I'm not seeing that prompt anymore. So not to worry, it's actually a plugin in the WordPress repository, and it's free. So if we go to plugins, click on add new, and we're going to do a search for Kadence Starter Templates. You'll see the Starter Templates by CadenceWP plugin right here. Click on install now and activate. Okay, so now we have it installed, and you'll see now that there is a template library. If you also go to appearance, go to Kadence, you'll also see the Starter Templates link right there in the menu. Go ahead and click on that. And here you'll see all the starter templates that Kadence has to offer. There's quite a number of them, and they target a multitude of niches, everything from e-commerce to small business. So one thing that you'll notice is that the templates are divided into pro templates, and then there are free templates. These pro templates become available when you have the Kadence Theme Pro add-on installed. And if you want to filter this further, if we go back to the top here, you can actually open up this drop down and look at the free only ones. And there's a lot of them that are actually great. When we talk about the Kadence Theme Pro add-on later on, we'll take a look at the pro templates as well. So let's go ahead and install one of these and see what it looks like to be able to install a website using the Kadence Starter Templates. So to install one, all you need to do is just figure out which one you want to use. So let's go ahead and install this one right here called Influencer. So I'm gonna go ahead and select it. When you select it, you get a preview of what the website looks like. On the left-hand side are the color schemes that are available, so you can test out some color schemes and see what it looks like with a different color scheme. And then you can also choose the font family that you would like to use. So you can either keep it at the default or just take a look at what it will look like with the other different font pairings. Over here, it's just saying that the required plugins that we need to install this theme is the Kadence blocks, and that's already active. And we have the option of installing the full site, or you could just install a single page. So for this, in this case, we're going to go ahead and install the full site. So I'm going to click on full site, and then here in the modal, it's going to ask you to subscribe and import. And we're going to go ahead and accept the privacy policy. And we're going to go ahead and click subscribe and start importing. If you've already subscribed, then you can go ahead and skip that and start importing right away. Okay, so now our starter template is now installed. And let's go ahead and click the finished viewer site button. And now our full-blown website is in place. And as you can see, it is installed fully. All the different sections for the home page are there. And you also have all the pages as well. So all that's left to do now is for you to take your own content and go ahead and modify this starter template to your liking. Once you have a starter template installed, making changes to it is very, very easy. All you need to do is go to the page that you want to make changes to, click on edit page, and you'll be taken to the page editor, and you can go ahead and make any changes that you see fit to any of the blocks that are in there. So I can change the image, I can change the text here and make it, whatever I want it to say. You can also add additional sections if you want to. So if there's a section that's not represented for you, adding a section is very easy. Just select any of the sections that are already available, click on the ellipsis and click on insert before or insert after, and there'll be a new block line for you to go ahead and add a new block. So I can go ahead and add a new row here, and I can go ahead and start creating new content right inside of the actual template itself. The other thing that you can also do is you can go back to the customizer as an example. So if we go back to the front end here, click on customize. And from here, I can actually change the color palette that comes with the starter template that I installed. So right now we can see the palette over here. We can see what the colors are. I can change this, or I can select a different one. So on palette 2, there's already a blue version of the site. And on palette 3, there is a dark mode version of the site. So again, everything is completely customizable with the starter template. I think the great thing about the Kadence starter templates is that it speeds up your development time in terms of creating a website. If you already have a layout in mind and you know what your general content is going to be, this can be very, very helpful in having you rapidly have a website up and running with just a few clicks. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to take a look at here is, what if you would like to switch this starter template to a different template? Well, that's very easy to do. Just go ahead and go to the dashboard, go to appearance, click on starter templates. And because we're using the free version, we're going to go ahead and select the free only. And now I can go ahead and select a different starter template to work with. So let's say I want to work with something that is more e-commerce focused. Okay, so here's one here. This is a jewelry shop. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And it gives you the preview of it, where you can make changes to the color scheme and also to the fonts. And then over here it says the required plugin. So it's telling me that I don't have WooCommerce installed and I don't have Orderable installed, but I do have Kadence blocks installed. Now, if I go to install this full site, okay, there's going to be a notice over here, and it says full site importing is designed for new and empty sites with no content. Your site customizer settings, widgets, menus will all be overridden. It is recommended that you enable delete previously imported posts and images if you are testing out different starter templates. Okay, so if I toggle this on, then it's going to delete the previously imported posts and images, which is typically what you want. If you don't, then it's going to override it on top of this, and then all that content will be together in your media library and your pages and so on. Okay, so you definitely want to toggle this on and then leave everything else as is, and then click on skip and start importing. And what it's going to do is it's going to install WooCommerce and Orderable for us, and then go ahead and build out the site. Okay, our starter template has been installed, and when we click on the finished view your site button, and then you'll see that your new website has been installed, complete with the images and content. And then all you need to do is add in your own content and also add in your own products. We can go to the shop over here and see the shop page with all the products installed. And so all you need to do here then is just go ahead and add in your own product, add in your own pricing, your own product descriptions, and your e-commerce website will be fully built out. So you can kind of see how the starter templates gives you a excellent head start on building out your website. And then you can go ahead and just change the brand colors to suit your brand, and you essentially have a website that is ready to go. So if you notice, everything we've been doing with the free version of Kadence. So the theme is free, and also Kadence blocks is free. And you can see how far you can actually take the Kadence free suite of tools. When you add in the Kadence Starter Templates, then it really takes you to a whole nother level. Right now, we're looking at a full-blown e-commerce website, and it is complete with cart, complete with products in it, and it is fully functional. And so far, you have not engaged the pro version or the pro add-ons that are available in Kadence. So one of the reasons why Kadence is considered to be one of the most powerful free suite of tools for building websites is just that, between the theme, Kadence blocks, and Kadence Starter Templates, you really have a lot that you can use to get yourself online or get a client online. What I want to do now is I actually want to talk about the Kadence Pro add-on and the Kadence Pro suite of tools and show you what you get access to. If you're really looking to supercharge your web development or web design, and you're really looking to take things to the next level and have even more power behind your website building, then I think it's very important for you to take a look and consider the Kadence Pro Theme Addon and the Kadence Pro suite of tools. So let's go ahead and jump into that right now. To get a preview of what's in the Kadence Theme Pro add-on, you can easily do that by just going to the dashboard, go to Appearance, and then click on the Kadence link. That'll take you to the Kadence dashboard. And if you scroll down, you'll see over here where it says Do More with the Kadence Pro add-on, and all these features that have a lock on them currently in the free theme are what comes in the Kadence Pro Theme Addon. There's actually a little bit more things that also come as well, but these are the core things. So you'll get header add-ons, which adds 19 elements to the header builder. Then there's the ultimate menu. This will add menu options for mega menus, highlight tags, icons, and much more. Then you also get header and footer scripts. It adds an option into the customizer to add header and footer scripts to your site. And then you also get hooked elements, which adds content anywhere into your site conditionally. This is probably one of the most powerful features of the Kadence Theme Pro add-on is the hooked elements. And we'll take a look at this shortly. And then you also get the WooCommerce add-on. So this adds new options into the customizer for WooCommerce store. So if you have an e-commerce store that's using WooCommerce, you're going to love having these WooCommerce add-ons on your site. The other items are infinite scroll, which adds an infinite scroll for your archives, local Gravatars, which loads Gravatars from your servers to improve your site performance, and then the archive custom page title backgrounds, which allows you to assign a custom image for taxonomy background. And really, this is just scratching the surface. These are very short descriptions for very advanced tools that you do get with the Kadence Pro Theme add-on. Okay. Now, if you like to check this out on their website, you can go to CliftonWP.com/Kadence, and that will take you to the Kadence website. And that is an affiliate link. So since we're talking about the Pro add-on, if you decide to purchase that Pro add-on using that link, then it will generate a commission, which will go to support the channel. So thank you very much in advance for doing that. You can also go directly to the site, which is at kadence.com as well. So once you get over here, if you hover over the products, you'll see premium bundles, the Kadence theme, Kadence Shop Kit, Kadence Cloud, Kadence Conversions, and Kadence Blocks. And then there's a link to view all the products, and Kadence does sell their products all separately. So one of them here is the Theme Pro add-on, and then all the other products are here as well. But Kadence also offers these as a bundle, and this is the way that I really recommend you engage with Kadence, is by going with the bundle, because when you go with a bundle, you actually get access to all the plugins that Kadence has to offer. Some of them are extremely powerful, and a lot of them are very, very useful, and you get access to them and you can use them on unlimited websites. They're one of the few suites of tools that allow you to use their plugins on unlimited websites. You have the choice between getting the Essential Bundle for $129 per year, and that'll give you the Kadence Blocks Pro, Kadence Theme Pro, the Pro Starter Templates, and Kadence Custom Fonts. Or you can do the full bundle, which is $199 per year, and that will give you a whole host more, including Kadence Cloud, Kadence Conversions, Kadence WooCommerce Shop Kit, which is also very powerful, the Child Theme Builder, Kadence Recapture, and access to all the plugins, and then exclusive access to all future products. They also have a lifetime bundle where you get everything in the bundle for one payment. You also get lifetime supports, updates, and you get access to all their future products, and you no longer have to pay any annual fees. This is actually where I am engaged with Kadence, and it has been more than worth the investment many times over. So if you're able to do the lifetime full bundle, I highly recommend it. But if not, then any one of these will serve you very well in terms of supercharging your website design process with Kadence. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and just take a look at the Kadence Pro Theme Add-on and what you get when you are signed up for one of these bundles. So this is what your account looks like, or what the My Account page or the dashboard looks like when you have at least the full bundle with Kadence. So you'll have a listing of all the products, and as you can see, you have access to the Kadence theme, the Kadence Pro plugin, so it's the premium add-on for the Kadence theme, and then Kadence Blocks Pro, and then you also have Kadence Conversions, Shop Kit, Kadence Cloud, Kadence Custom Fonts, Kadence Capture, Galleries, Simple Share, and then there's even access to the classic plugins from Kadence and also the classic themes as well. So you do get access to a lot. Either you have the full bundle on an annual basis, or the full bundle as a lifetime purchase. You basically get access to all of these plugins, and then also any future plugins that they release as well, you will also get access to. So as long as you have the full bundle, so what we were looking at here, this is what the full bundle looks like. So as long as you have the full bundle, whether it's the annual or the lifetime, then this is what your dashboard is going to look like, and you'll have access to all of these items. And then if you have access to the Essential Bundle, then you only get the Kadence Blocks Pro, Kadence Theme Pro, the Pro Starter Templates, and the Kadence Custom Fonts. And then there's also the option to just have the Kadence Theme Pro add-on. And this is where you'll just get access to just the features, you know, the header add-ons, hooked elements, WooCommerce add-on, ultimate menu, custom fonts, and the header and footer scripts. But you don't get access to all of the other plugins that you may need to build out more advanced websites. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and download the latest version of the Kadence Pro Theme Add-on, which is this one right here. I'm going to click on download. Okay, and that's going to give me the Kadence Pro Theme Add-on. And I'm also going to download the Kadence Blocks Pro as well. And that's going to give me some additional blocks in addition to the 21 blocks that already come in the free version of the Kadence Blocks plugin. We're now going to add some additional blocks, and we're going to explore what those blocks are as well. Okay, so next we're going to go ahead and upload the Kadence Pro Theme Add-on and the Kadence Blocks Pro to our site. To do that, just go back to your site, go to the dashboard, go to the plugins, click on Add New, and we're going to click on Upload Plugin, choose File. We're going to select the Kadence Pro Theme Add-on first, click on Install Now, and Activate Plugin. Then we'll go back to Plugins, click on Add New, Upload Plugin, choose File, and this time we're going to upload the Kadence Blocks Pro and Install Now, Activate Plugin. Okay, so now we have them both installed. So if you go to Appearance and you click on Kadence, you'll now see that the Pro Theme Add-ons are now available to you, so the lock is no longer there. And what you want to do is you want to go ahead and toggle all of these on, so just the way mine is right now. Typically, when you first install it, these are toggled off. So toggle all of them on so that we can go through them one feature at a time. And then if you go to your pages, and let's go to all pages, and I'm going to select that home page we created initially. So if we look at the home page and you click on the block inserter, you'll notice that now we have more than the 21 default blocks that come in Kadence. We now have up to 32. So there are some new blocks here, such as the show more block, the modal block, there's a dynamic list, dynamic HTML, and many more blocks that we're going to be looking at as we walk through the Kadence Blocks Pro. And then one other feature that I want to showcase before we move on, there's several other ones, but let's look at this actual specific feature here. So I'm going to open up the page and list view, and we have this row layout. I'm going to select the section, and if we go to the advanced tab here on the right, you'll now notice that there's an ability for you to actually animate the section now. So now the animation features are now available to you, and you could use this to be able to add some more dynamic movement to your web page. Okay, so next what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the front end of the website. We're going to access the customizer, and we're going to go ahead and walk through the Pro Theme Addon benefits that are now available to you now that you've uploaded the Kadence Pro Theme Addon. Okay, so the first pro feature we're going to take a look at is going to be the header add-ons. Now, what the header add-ons does is it adds additional items that you can use to build out your header. So let's take a look at this by going to the front end of the website, and we're going to access the customizer. When you access the customizer, go ahead and click on the header tab, and what that'll do is it'll open up the header builder. And once that opens up, you'll now see your default items that are already in the header. So we already have a logo, we have a primary navigation, our social icons, and then we have a cart. But below that, on the left-hand side here, you'll see the available items. And under the available items, you'll see that we have additional items that can be used to build out the header even further. The new items that you now have are going to be the account item. There's a new HTML item for you to add additional HTML to the header. You also have a third navigation item, a fourth navigation item. You have up to 3 dividers. There's a search bar to be able to search for products. There's a widget area which will allow you to add blocks to the header. There's a contact item that allows you to add contact information. There's a button, so there's an additional button. You also have a toggle widget area, which means when you pull this over, when people click on it, it will open up a canvas in the header. We'll take a look at that. And then we have the dark mode toggle, and this is actually added because we have the dark mode pro feature turned on. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the new items that you have to build out your header. Let's start with the account. So when you move this over, you can move this over, remember, to any of the rows. You have a top row, a main row, and a bottom row. But let's go ahead and move this right next to the cart. When you add the account item here and you click on the cogwheel, you'll access the settings for that account item. What the account item will allow you to be able to do is it will allow you to customize an icon or an icon and a label for people to access their account on your shop. You can also use this if this were a membership site as well. So it doesn't have to be an e-commerce website. It could also be a membership website. As long as you have the Kadence Pro Theme Addon installed, you will have access to the additional item, including the account item. You get to customize the logged in view, and you can customize the logged out view as well. So if you take a look at the logged in view, right now it's set to be just the icon, but you can choose for it to be an icon and the label. You can have it be the label and the avatar. You can have the avatar and the label. You can have an icon and a username. Lots of different options here. So very flexible, and this will basically allow you to customize your header however way that you want it, whatever the best use is for your users. Now for the label, you can also change that label. So if you prefer to have it say something like dashboard as an example, you can have it say that. If this were a membership site, you could say member access, okay, something like that if you wanted to. So whatever it is that you wanted to say, you can have it say that there. You can also change the account icon. So if you would prefer something more filled in, we can have this filled in icon, or you can have an outline of an icon, or you can just have a very simple account icon as well. You also have the option of adding a drop-down menu to that link here, or you can link it to something else, and you can link it to anything that you want. Okay. If you have it on the drop-down menu, the drop-down source can be a navigation menu that you've created in your menus, or it could be a WooCommerce account menu as well. So if I select the WooCommerce account menu, notice how it gives me the dashboard, orders, downloads, addresses, account details, and a logout link as well. Okay, it's great for your e-commerce website. And then you can also still have the account item itself. So the parent item, you can also have that be a completely separate URL, a completely separate link as well. Let's take a look at the dividers. So the divider allows you to be able to separate items that are in your header. So because we have multiple dividers now, I can go ahead and place a divider after my social icons if I want. I can also place a divider right after my primary navigation. Okay, so I'm creating some dividers there, and you can also customize these dividers. So you can make them to be as tall as you want, or if you like them to be a little less distinct, you can also do that as well. So whatever it is that works best for you and your site, you can absolutely apply that to the dividers. All right, the next item that I also want us to take a look at is going to be the toggle widget area. So you're familiar with widget areas and adding them to your footer, but the Header Pro add-on adds a widget area that you can also add to the header. And basically the way this works is if you drag a widget in here, and what you can do with this widget is basically add blocks. Now, the best way to be able to add items to this widget area is to do it in the dashboard. So when you go into the dashboard, you're going to go to, so let's exit out of here real quick. And let me actually show you what that looks like. So you'll want to go to your, when you go to the dashboard, go to Appearance, go to Widgets, and in this widget area right over here, you will see the header area. So this is that header area widget. And you'd basically come in here and add your blocks. And you can add whatever blocks or whatever content that you want to have appear in that widget area, and it will show up in your header. Okay, let's go back. All right, if we're taking a look at the header again and looking at those items, the other item I want to show you is the toggle widget area. So if I drag this over, so let's drag this over to, let's drag it to right after the cart. So when you drag that over, you're going to have a toggle item in your header. And the way this works is if somebody were to click on this, it opens up a panel, and we can add anything, any blocks that we want in this panel. So if you have some useful information or useful blocks or calls to action, that can be added here. You can also add a menu here if you want to as well. The toggle widget area, similar to the widget area, also accepts blocks. So again, this is one of those things where I highly recommend you go to the back end of your website, build out your toggle widget area there. It's very easy to do. Just go back to the website, go to the dashboard, go to Appearance, Widgets, and in the list of widgets here, you'll see the header off canvas widget area. And you can go ahead and add your blocks in here, build it out to your heart's content. And then whatever you add in here, whatever you build in here is what's going to show up in that header panel when people click on that toggle widget area. Okay, so let's look at one last item that I think is pretty cool to have. So if we go back to the header and we look at the available items, you'll see an item here called Contact. So this contact item is pretty unique because what it does is it allows you to add contact information to your site very, very quickly in the header. So sometimes you've seen headers where there's contact information at the top of the header. That's what this item does. So if I drag this over to the top row over here, we can see we have our phone number and we have our hours of operation. Now, if I click on the cogwheel to look at the settings for the contact item, you'll see where that information is coming from. So we can see here we have the phone number information, we have the hours of operation information. You can also add additional information. So if I want to add an email address, I can do that, and I can also add an address as well. Okay, and just like all the other items, there is a general settings area. Each item has its own set of settings, so you can select an icon for each item. You can add a link and you can change the label. But under the design settings, this is where you can go ahead and configure this so that it looks the way you want it to look on your site. So for instance, I may want this to have a little bit more spacing, right? So I can use the item spacing setting here to create some spacing between each element. And then I can also choose to have the size of it be a little bit smaller, right? Because right now it looks pretty big. So I might change this to 14 pixels. And then all I need to do now to make this look really cool is to just go ahead and set up my top row by clicking on the cogwheel of the top row and going into the design settings and adding some padding. So I might add 8 pixels at the top, 8 pixels at the bottom. And maybe I want to add some color to it as well. So I can open this up here and we can add a subtle color like that. And so now I have my contact information, very easy to add using the contact item from the new header add-ons feature. Okay, so now let's go back and let's just look at one last thing here in the header add-ons. So the last item that I'll actually want to show you is the button item. So notice that now we have an additional button in addition to the default button that comes in there as well. So now you have the ability to have multiple buttons on your site, and you can just drag this button anywhere. I might drag it right up there at the top row, and you can configure this button any way that you like. It doesn't have to be as big as you see it there. You can go ahead and make this a lot smaller. Just click on the cogwheel, go to the design options. I'm going to select that I want a custom button, and I'm just going to change the padding. 4 pixels at the top, 4 pixels at the bottom, and we'll do 12 on the sides. So it's just a nice and simple button. And then you can also change the font as well. So we can have the font actually match the rest of the items in there. So we'll give it a 14 size font. And you'll notice that now the button adheres to those settings for me. And now I have a pretty cool header using the Header Pro add-ons. All right, up next, let's go ahead and take a look at conditional headers, which is the next featured item that you'll have here when you install the Kadence Pro Theme Addon. The next pro feature is the conditional headers. And what this feature allows you to do is to build multiple headers or extra headers to display on different pages. So you can have a different header for a completely different page, maybe on your My Account page or your member dashboard page. You want a completely different header, or you're creating a special landing page and you don't want the main header of the website to be the header of that page. Conditional headers will allow you to build out that custom header and have it conditionally only show on that specific page. So let's take a look at this functionality. To access the conditional headers capability, let's go ahead and go to the front end of the website, and from the WP admin toolbar, we're going to go ahead and click on Customize, which will open up the customizer for us. The conditional headers will be contained under the Header tab, and once you click on the Header tab, it is the last option under the settings for the header. Select the conditional header and you'll be in the interface where you can start building out your conditional headers. Now, the first one that you're going to see is going to be your default header, which is this header right here that we have right now on the website. To create a new header, go ahead and click on the Add Header button. When you do that, you'll be given the option to start with a basic header, to copy the default header, or to import a header. Let's go ahead and start with the basic. Once you select the basic, you'll see this extra header over here. Now it is by default toggled to off. You can go ahead and toggle it on. And then if you click on the arrow here, you expand the item controls, so this header controls. And here we can change the label. So let's call this My Custom Header. And then you also have the display settings, where you can choose where this header should show. So if you open up the drop down here, you can see you can choose it for the entire site, front page, blog page, search results, or a 404 page, or all the singular pages, archive pages, and so on. If you choose single posts or single pages, then you have the option of being able to select individual pages or a group of pages or pages by specific author. So there's a lot of customization capabilities in terms of where you would want this to display. You basically can configure any kind of rule to control where this header displays. You also have exclude settings, and then there are also user settings. So the user settings are where you go to choose who this header is visible to. So it can be visible to logged out users or logged in users or users with a specific role. And then lastly, you have the expires settings option here. So with the expires settings, you can actually set up a date and time for this header to be active, and then after that time has passed, then the header will no longer be active and it will be deactivated, and then the default header will be in place at that point. So pretty cool functionality with the custom headers. So now how do we customize these this custom header? Let me show you how. What you want to do is once you've toggled it on, we're going to go here to the default drop down, open that up, and you'll see the listing for your custom header. Go ahead and select that and then confirm and save the settings. Once you do that, the preview will change and you'll see now that you now have the custom header in place or in view in the customizer. It's going to be very basic. It'll just have the title of your website and the primary navigation. And everything that you do here, every item that you add here, every configuration, every setting, every design setting that you do here will only apply to this custom header. It will not affect the default header. Okay, so that means we can have a completely different logo if we want. We can have different items if we want. We can have completely different configurations if we want for this header. So let's just keep this very simple. We're going to go ahead and change the logo of my custom header here, and let's just select an image. And just for fun, we're going to make this a different logo than what is currently on the website. Okay, and then from here, we're going to select that we only want the logo layout, so we don't want the title of the website showing up. And then instead of us having the primary navigation, let's go ahead and remove that, and let's go ahead and add just a simple button. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to move my button over. We'll call it Shop Now. Okay, so we'll call it Shop Now. Let's go ahead and configure it a little bit. So I'm going to go to Design Settings. And I want this to be smaller. Actually, let's go Custom. And at the top, we'll have 4 pixels, the bottom 4. And the right, let's do 16, and left 16. All right, that looks more like a button. Okay, great. All right, I'm pretty happy with the way this looks so far. So this is all I really want here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. Actually, why don't we also add a link? So the URL for this one will be the actual shop. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and publish this. Now remember, we have to set up where we want this to show up, right? So I'm going to come over here to the general. Whoops, actually go back. And where I want this to show up, let's go back to our conditional header options here. So where I want this to display is I want it to display on all blog posts. Okay, so all blog posts will have this header or this call to action as a header. So I'm going to say show on. I'm going to open up the drop down and we're going to scroll down and we're going to look for single posts and we're going to leave it at all. Okay, then everything else just stays the same. Go ahead and click on publish. And then we're going to exit the customizer and see what happens. Okay, so we're out of the customizer and you notice that once we jumped out of the customizer, we're now back to our default header that we created. So now I'm going to go to the blog posts and let's just access any one of these blogs. So let's look at this first one. And you notice that on the blog post, I now have my custom header showing up instead of the default header that we had before. So I just have a clean header with a simple call to action to go ahead and visit the shop page. So when they click here, it will take them straight to the shop and they can go ahead and from my blog or any blog on the site, they can go ahead and shop. And that is how you use a conditional header. You can have as many conditional headers as you want, and you can target them to as many different pages or as many different custom post types as you want, and they will show up there accordingly. Okay. All right. Up next, let's go ahead and take a look at the Ultimate Menu Pro feature in Kadence. So if you'd like to create things like a mega menu for your website or add descriptions to your menu items, or highlight tags or icons, then the ultimate menu in the Pro Themes add-on is what you want. So make sure that that's toggled on, and then let's go ahead and take a look at what happens to our menus and some of the new functionality that we have once the ultimate menu is on. Okay, so first let's take a look at the menu that we actually have on this website. If you go back to the front end of the site, you'll see over here the navigation, so the menu for the website. And you'll see we even have a drop down over here. So there's a drop down of categories or pages underneath the shop page. And then the rest of them are just the top level menus that we have. This menu is created in the WordPress menu system. So you can access that by going to the dashboard, go to appearance and menus. So you'll see your menus here. Here are the menu items. This contains all the pages, posts, and categories for the site. And then this is the menu structure where the menu is set up. Everything that's flush to the left is a top level menu, and everything that is shifted over like this is a sub menu or a drop down menu. Okay, so any of these structures is what you will work on when you're using the ultimate menu. Now let's go back to appearance and Kadence, the Kadence dashboard. And over here we have the ultimate menu toggled on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle it off so that you can see what your menus look like when you don't have the ultimate menu toggled on. So if I go back to appearance and menus, and we take a look at the menus now, if you open up the drop down, or you click on this caret arrow right here, and you open that up for any of the menus, you'll see that we have a navigation label. We have some navigation for the menu itself. So I can click this and move it down one, right? Or I can move it up one that way. I can also drag the menu around, right? And then we have the original link for this menu, because you can actually change this label. So I could say, I could call this store if I wanted to. So I'll name it something else. Okay, but it will always tell you what the original name of that label is for the page that it is. Okay, let's put that back to home. Okay, so this is everything that you have in the label. Now there are additional items, additional menu items that you can have here in this label. And if you want those items, you can go to screen options, and there's a whole host of things you can select that will impact what you're seeing in here. Okay, so the advanced menu properties are any of these, and you can basically add CSS classes to it, a title attribute, a link target, right? A link relationship, and even a description can be added. So this can be really built out if you wanted to. And this is by default. So we haven't touched on anything that has to do with the ultimate menus yet. I'm going to go ahead and toggle these back off. Okay, so now when we toggle on the ultimate menu, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to Kadence dashboard. When you toggle this on, and then you go back to appearance menus. All right, here we are. If you open up any of the links now, you'll notice that there is a new setting, a new button called menu item settings. This is coming from the ultimate menu. And so now with this new setting here, if you click this, you'll be met with a new set of options or some new settings. And the first tab is going to be the label settings. Okay, so you have the option of hiding the text label. You can disable the link. You can enable the description. So remember I showed you that description. You can enable the description, and you can add an icon. So let's go ahead and add an icon. So I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to search for a home icon. Let's use this one. Okay. And you can choose whether you want it to be on the left side or the right side. I actually want it to be on the left side. Okay. And I'll leave the icon size at the default, and I'll leave all this alone as well. So we'll talk about the highlight label and the highlight icons and all that in a bit. So I'm going to save and close this, and I'm also going to save the menu. And then when we go to the front end, you can now see that we have an icon next to our home link. Okay, and you can do that for every single one of these. You can have icons for every single one of your menu items. Okay, let's go back to the menus again. And let's go back to that home menu. Click on menu item settings. And remember, we're still on the first tab. We'll take a look at the mega settings in a bit. All right, so now what if I want to just have just the icon? Well, I can go ahead and hide the text label and click save and close. Save my menu. And if I go to the front end, now all I have here is just the icon, and it still will link to the home page when you click on it. Okay, so this is how you can have icons for some of your menu items. Let's go back to the dashboard. Let's go back to appearance, menus. Let's go to that home menu and menu settings. And I'm just going to untoggle that. Let's go ahead and remove the icon. And then let's come down here and take a look at the highlight label. So what is a highlight label? Well, if there's something that you want to highlight, if there's a link on your website or in your menu your menu navigation that you want to highlight, this is where you would do that. So let's say I've created something new. I'm going to put a highlight called new. All right, and let's use a highlight icon. So something that will draw people's attention. So let's do this one. Okay, it's an attention-seeking icon. And let's make the highlight label color. So the color is going to be the text inside of that label. What's going to be that color? So let's change this color to white. And I'm going to make the highlight label background. Let's use one of our highlight colors here. I'll use this green color. And I'm going to save and close, save the menu. And when we go to the front end, you can see now that we have a new highlight next to the menu item. Okay, so sometimes when you have something that you want to draw people's attention to, then this is a great way for you to be able to do that. All right, let's go back to the dashboard. Go back to appearance, go to menus. We're going to open up the home menu item, click on menu item settings. And let's go ahead and disable what we just did. So I'm going to delete the new. I'm going to remove the highlight icon. Going to remove that, and let's reset everything back to what it was, and save and close. Okay, so now we've taken a look under the menu item settings. We've taken a look at everything that you can do under the label settings. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the things you can do under the mega settings. So if you've ever wanted to have a mega menu on your website, then the Kadence Pro Theme Addon Ultimate Menu feature will allow you to be able to do that very easily. So far we've been covering the label settings under the menu item settings. And if you remember, by having that ultimate menu toggle on, you now have these extra settings in the menu properties. This setting is available for every menu item. So all you need to do is just open up the menu properties and you'll see the menu item settings button there. So when we click on this, you have these mega settings, and what this will allow you to do is to basically create a mega menu out of your existing menu. So to do that, let's go over and click on that tab, and when you do that, you'll need to enable the mega menu drop-down capability. Once we enable it, then you'll see that we now have the mega menu width, and the options are the width of the content, and menu container width, full width, and a custom width. And then you also have the mega menu columns. You can have up to 6 columns. Then there's the mega menu column layout, and this will change depending on how many columns you selected. So for instance, if I have 2 columns, then I have different column layout options. If I have 6 columns, then I pretty much have only 1 column layout option. So depending on which one you choose, that'll give you the options for the layout. Then you have the design settings. So there's a mega drop down background. You can select the background color for your mega menu, padding, and then the item colors, link colors, and so on. Okay, so let me explain to you how the mega menu works. So the first thing that we need in a mega menu is we need the parent item, right? So if you have a parent item, then you will need the columns in that mega menu and then the actual items themselves underneath them. So from the structure of your menu, the way to organize this is, one, we need a parent item. So first of all, let's identify what a parent item is. I'm gonna go ahead and save this, and let's go to the front end of the website. So these are all top level parent items, right? So the first thing that you see up here, every single one of these have the capability of becoming a mega menu, right? And then you're gonna have child items or sub items, or what people call a sub menu or drop down. So for instance, the shop is the parent, and then these are the child items or the child menu items. Okay, so now that we know what each of these is, let's go ahead and just add a new one, and we'll call it mega menu just for the sake of this tutorial. So I'm going to go back to menus, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to create a custom link. So it won't link to anything, and we'll call this our mega menu, and we'll add it here. And we'll just add it to the very last part of our menu. Go ahead and save it. And let's look at the front end. So now we have our mega menu parent item. Okay, now what I want is when I hover over this, I want a mega menu to show up. Okay, So to do that, we need to go ahead and activate the mega menu capability for this menu item. So let's go back to our dashboard, appearance, menus, and we're going to scroll down to our mega menu. I'm going to open up the properties. I'm going to select the menu item settings. So click here. And then I'm going to go to the mega settings and I'm going to enable the mega menu dropdown. For now, we're going to leave it at content width. I want 3 columns and this column layout is just fine. Everything else I'm going to leave as default. So let's go ahead and save that. All right, and save our menu. Okay, so now that we've done that, now we need to go ahead and add some items to it. So the first thing I want to add is going to be the column titles, right? So if I go to the front end of the website now and I look at the mega menu, I hover over it, nothing's happening, right? That's because we don't have any items. So let's go back to our menus. Okay, I can just go to here to menus from the WP admin toolbar, click on menus. And from here, and we're just going to create a custom one. So let's just do custom links. And I'm just going to have them not link anywhere. And we'll call this column 1 heading. Okay. Add that to the menu. Let's create another one. Column 2 heading. Now these can be actual pages themselves or categories. It can be anything that you want. I'm just using the custom links for explanation purposes. So let's make this custom column 3 heading. Okay, so now these are all added to the menu, and then all I need to do now is just drag them and shift them over so that they are one sub-level down, kind of like you would do with a sub menu or a drop-down menu. Okay, go ahead and save the menu, and then let's take a look at it on the front end. All right, so now we have our mega menu, and if you notice when I hover over this, you can now see the different column headings. Okay, now these can also link to things. This can be pretty much the end of your mega menu, or you can add additional items. So let's go ahead and add some additional items underneath these column headings. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the menus. Let's go back here, and just for fun, let's add some pages that already exist. So I'm going to go ahead and add materials, contacts, about us. Let's just add that in there, and let's drag them. So you see how I'm going to shift them underneath each column heading. Move this over, and then let's see, let's add some more pages. So let's add some of these shop pages. Add to the menu. And add that over. And I'm going to save my menu. Well, let's add one more item. Let's add one more set of items. So, and it could be the same pages if you want. It's really flexible. So this is just for show. You really wouldn't do this on a live site, adding the same pages over and over again. But I just need to show you what the mega menu looks like. So you can see the structure here, right? So here's our parent link, or the top level link for the mega menu. These are our column titles. We said that we wanted 3 columns, and then these are the actual items underneath those. These are the actual items underneath those columns, and everything links, right? So the column heading links, and all the other sub pages also link as well. And our menu is now saved. So then we now go back to the front end of the site, and if you hover over the mega menu, you can see now we have this full blown mega menu. Okay. And each thing can link to everything else. And that's how you create a mega menu. If you want the mega menu to actually fill the entire browser, then that's very easy to do. The full width of the browser, that is, not the entire browser. You can just go back to Appearance, Menus, go to the parent menu, which is going to be this one here. Click on Menu, Item Settings, Mega Settings, and here I can say I want this to be full width. Save the menu. Go to the front end of the site, and if I hover over, you can see that it spans the full width of the browser. Okay. All right. That is how we create mega menus using the ultimate menu feature in the Kadence Pro Theme add-on. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the header and footer scripts feature in the Kadence Pro Theme Addon. Okay, so the header and footer scripts option is fairly easy and straightforward. If you have scripts such as Google Analytics or special JavaScript that you need to add to your website, then toggling on the header and footer scripts will give you the option to be able to do that in the customizer. So if we go to the front end of the website and you access the customizer, you will see a new tab option here called custom scripts. And when you open this up, you'll see that you can add scripts into your header. You can add scripts right after the opening body tag, and you can add scripts into your footer directly to your site. And that concludes the feature for the header and footer scripts. Up next, let's take a look at the hooked elements feature of Kadence. All right, so let's take a look at the hooked elements feature of the Kadence Pro Theme add-on. The hooked elements is referring to your ability to be able to create any type of content and hook that content anywhere into your website beyond the areas where you can already add content. So for instance, if you want to add a banner, or you want to create a specific type of template, or you want to add a special section on different pages, you can absolutely do that using the hooked elements. But that's just the beginning. The use cases for the hooked elements is very vast and almost unlimited in terms of what you can do with it. And I think this one pro feature alone makes the investment into the Kadence Pro Theme add-on totally worth it, because this will allow you to go beyond your basic website building and practically be able to create anything that you want to. So we're going to take a look at a couple of use cases on using it, but by no means do not take that as to be the limits of what the hooked elements can do. It can do a whole lot more. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Once you have the hooked elements toggled on, to access the elements interface, just go to the menu in the dashboard under the Kadence, and you'll see right here a listing called elements. Click on that link and it will take you to the elements section of the dashboard. And these are the types of elements you can create. So there are content sections, you can create fixed items, you can create templates, and you can create HTML code. So sections are basically blocks or rows or layouts or any number of blocks that you've put together that is a section and you're looking to hook it into somewhere. Fixed items are also sections, except these are fixed items. So these tend to be fixed to the website, and they tend to stay in place when you're moving around the website. Templates have to do with the actual templates in your site. So you can actually create templates that will replace maybe your page layouts or replace your post layouts, or if you have custom post types and those post types need to have the information arranged and organized in a certain way, that will happen in the templates. And then you can also build out sections and other items using HTML code. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our first element. To create an element, go to Appearance, Kadence, Elements. That'll bring you to the screen right over here. Click on Add New. Once you do that, you'll be presented with the element setup, and it's going to ask you the type of element that you want to create. The choices are a content section, a fixed section, template, or you want to use the HTML editor. For this specific one, we're going to use the content section. And once you select that, then you're ready to start building out your element. And you basically build it out the same way you would build out a page or a post using the Gutenberg blocks. Now over here on the right hand side, you're going to find the element settings. If you select that, here's where you can go ahead and configure the element once you're done building it. So over here we have the element type, and you can change this. If you change your mind and you no longer want it to be a content section, you can click that and be able to choose a different type of element. Then you have the preview settings. So the preview settings basically opens up a preview setup, and it lets you set up the width of the element build out. And then you can also select what to preview with. So you can preview with posts or pages or any other custom post type that's in there. And this is particularly useful if you're building out an element that has dynamic content and you're using it for a specific custom post type. Then you also have the placement. So the placement, depending on the type of element that you're building, you will have a placement for that element. So in this case, we're building a content section. So it's going to ask you where you want to place that content. So do you want it before the site wrapper, after the site wrapper, before the header, and so on. And so there are different areas where you can replace these. For instance, you can actually build out a header here and then replace your actual header with an element. Okay, and then you will also find that there are different hook areas for different parts of your website: the content and sidebar, the single inner content, specific pages, inside of the actual content, after the first, second, third, or fourth paragraph, before comments, and many others as well. Okay. After the placement, then you have the display settings. Now, the display settings is the instruction you're going to give this element on where to show up on the site. So you can choose where you want this element to appear. So here where it says show on, if you open up the drop down, you'll see that, okay, we want this either on the entire site, the front page, blog page, singular pages, on single posts, and so on. You just basically choose where you want it to show up, and you can add multiple rules. You can also exclude this element from showing up in certain areas of your site as well. Then there are user settings where you get to determine what users get to see this element. So you can set it up for logged out users or logged in users, or you can choose a specific role. Then you also have device settings. So you can set this up to show up on all your devices, or just on mobile devices, or just on desktop. And then lastly, you have the expire settings, where you can set up a time and day for the element to show up. So a good idea for something like this would be maybe if a restaurant is running a certain type of special and they only want that special to be, let's say, on Tuesdays, or to run for a week, they can go ahead and set that up here, or you can go ahead and set that up for them here, and then it will automatically expire without you having to go back in and delete the element. Okay, so those are all the element settings. Now let's go ahead and actually build out an element and implement it in the way that we've described. Okay, to create our first element, let's take it from the top. So we're gonna go to the Appearance, Kadence, and then select Element. That'll bring you to this screen right here. Click on Add New. We're gonna select that we want a content section, and we're gonna title this Flash Sale Banner. We're gonna create a flash sale banner for our website. Okay, now that I've titled it, I'm going to go ahead and publish it just to save my work. And then let's go ahead and start building out the actual banner. Okay, so first we need to insert a row. We can do that in a number of ways. You can do a / and begin to type the word row, and you'll see the row layout option. We want the cadence option. An alternate way of doing this is you can also click on this plus sign right over here to add a block and select the row layout from the short menu that shows up here. Or you can also click on the block inserter and select the row layout directly from the available blocks. And in this case, we want a 3-column row. So let's go ahead and select that. All right, and so here's our 3-column row. I'm going to immediately set up a few settings here. So first, I want this to be full width. So in the short menu here, we're going to select that we want this to be full width. And then I also want to add some color to this so that I can see it. So over here on the right hand side, under style, we're going to go to the background settings, and under the background color, I'm going to select that, and I'm going to select my highlight color, which is the green color for this specific site. Okay, so far that looks pretty good. Looks like we have an extra block here, so let's go ahead and remove that. Okay, so now I want to set up the internal section of this. I want this to be centered to the center of the row itself. So I'm going to select the row, and then right over here in the short menu, the inner content width, I'm going to set that to use the theme content inner width. So that's going to bring everything for me to the center, no matter how far out the row stretches. All right, so now that I have that, next I'm going to add some blocks. So I want to add a countdown block. I also want to add a flash sale text, and then a coupon text, a coupon code text here. Okay. So I'm going to click on the plus sign inside of this column, and I'm going to do a search for countdown. And we're going to grab the cadence countdown timer. Okay. Now here on the right hand side, I'm going to select the date that I want this timer to be. So let's just select it for the 25th of May. Next, we need to be able to see our timer because it's a little dark here. So what we're going to do is go to the style section here, and I'm going to set the number settings. We're going to set that color to white. Okay, and then the label settings, we're going to set that as well to white. Okay, so far that looks good. over here on in the general settings, there's actually an option all the way down here, the countdown layout, where you can add some additional options here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to center this. And then I also want to enable a divider. And everything else I'm going to leave as is. Okay, so that's under the general tab for the countdown timer. Now back to the style. Here under the style settings, one thing that I want to do is I want to reduce the size of this text. So I'm going to scroll all the way down. We're going to first start with the number settings. And I'm going to reduce this to, let's just select a small size. Okay, that looks a little bit too small, so let's make it medium. All right, I think that's acceptable. And then I'm going to go down to the label settings, and I'm going to repeat that process, make it medium as well. So the label on the medium size, because it's capitalized, is a little bit big. So what I want to do is I'm going to set a custom setting here, because I want that to be really small. I want it to be, let's make it 12 pixels. That's great. Okay, excellent. And then the next thing that I want to do is I want to put a border around it so that it's a little bit more noticeable. So I'm going to scroll back up under the style settings. The border color is going to be white. And the border width, let's go ahead and link all the sides. The border width is going to be 1 pixel. Let's add a border radius to soften up those edges. So we'll make this 6 pixels. Okay, so far that looks pretty good. All right, next we need to add our text. So I'm going to click on the plus sign over here, add some advanced text, and we'll say, let's say 50% off flash sale. Okay, let's go ahead and center our text. And then here in the settings for the advanced text, I'm going to go ahead and add some color to this. So let's just add a subtle light color there. And that's pretty much all we need to do there. It looks good. And then next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to copy this. So I'm going to click on the ellipsis over here, and we're going to click on duplicate. And then I'm going to drag that over to the next column, save me some time. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to add our code. So let's say use code $50 flash. Okay. And now we need to change this, we need to change the font a little bit so that it's a little bit smaller and it's not using this top level font. So what I'm going to do here is first, I'm going to change this from an H2 tag to a paragraph tag. So that looks a little bit better. And then here on the right-hand side, what I want to do is I just want to increase the size just a little bit. So let's go with medium. All right, and that looks great. Next, I need to center everything inside of this row. So I'm going to select the row itself. Okay, like that. If you're having a hard time selecting the row, just opening it up in list view by clicking on the document overview list here and select the row layout. And then what I want to do here from the short menu is set the alignment to all be in the middle. So everything's aligned in the middle like that. All right, so far that looks great. Okay, and the next thing we want to do is we actually want to slim down our row a little bit. So I can see that there's some padding here, there's some small padding there, there's small padding at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and just drag that out and do the same thing for the bottom. Okay, that's looking a little bit better, but I also want a little bit more, I need this to be a little bit more slim. So let's go ahead and select the countdown timer. And here, what we're going to do with the countdown timer, I'm going to go to advanced in the settings. I'm going to unify the padding, and then I'm going to just make it none. So you see how it kind of flushes everything right there right to the edges of the actual row itself. Okay, this looks great. All right, next I need to make this a little bit smaller. So I'm going to select the text for the 50% off flash sale. Move over here to the style, and let's see how this looks. Let's actually put a custom size over here, and I want to make this 36. Whoops, actually, let's make it 28. Okay, that looks a lot better. And then here, let's just make sure this is centered, that's centered, everything is centered. And then, so now that this is now nice and flush, I'm going to go back to my row and go to the advanced section of that row. And over here on the top one, I'm going to add an extra small, XXX small padding on the top, And I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom. Okay, this looks very good and I'm very happy with it. I'm going to go ahead and save my work by clicking on update. All right, so now we've created this element and this element now exists. Okay, so if we view this element, so I'm going to open this in a new tab. Okay, this is what the element looks like. Okay, so now what we want to do is see how we can add it to our website. Okay, so if we go to the front end of the website, let me go to the dashboard, and let's go to the front end of the website. You can see now that the element is nowhere to be found, but we have created it. So what we need to do next is we need to assign that element to where we want it on our website. So let's go back to the element itself. Here it is. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go and access the element settings, which is this icon right here. So click on element settings. We're happy that it's the content section. We're going to look at the placement. So I'm going to open up the drop down under the placement, and I'm going to say I want this to be before the header. That way it lines up at the very top here of our site. Okay, so I'm going to say I want that to be before the header. And then the display settings, show on, I want it to show on the entire website. So no matter where you are on the website, I want this banner to be displayed. Okay, and other than that, this looks like we don't need to do anything else in the other settings. This is all set. Go ahead and click on update. And then when we go to the front end of the website and we refresh the screen, you can now see that the flash sale banner is now affixed to the top of the site right above the header, exactly where we placed it. And so now no matter what page I'm on, so if I go to the contact page, the banner is still there. If I'm reading a blog, the banner is still there. Okay. Up next, let's look at another use case of where we're using elements to add content to the website. Okay, so let's go back to the admin dashboard, and we're going to go to Appearance, Kadence, Elements. For this element, we're going to create a different kind of element. We're going to create one that is a fixed section, and this is going to be an icon menu. Now, if you haven't heard of an icon menu, that's just a menu that's made up of icons. And we're going to float it on top of the website. So let's go ahead and name it floating icon menu. And our icon menu will consist of a series of menus. So we're going to go ahead and do a search for icon. We're going to use a Kadence icon. And this is what the Kadence icon looks like. We'll start with this first one, and then we'll replicate it with all the settings in place. So the first thing that I want is I want this icon to be aligned to the left. Okay. And then I will make this icon, let's make this icon a home icon. So select the icon over here on the right, under the icon settings. We're going to change this icon by clicking in the box here. And let's just search for a home icon. Okay, it looks pretty good. And then we want to make this a little bit smaller. So I'm going to make this 30 pixels. And here where it says the icon style, this is set to default, so that you're seeing the icon by itself, but I want it to be stacked. That way it has a border around it. And the padding on that border is a little bit big. So what I want to do in this case is I want to reduce the padding a little bit for that border. So I'm going to go over here to advanced. And here where it says icon padding, I'm going to go ahead and unify the padding sides, and I'm going to bring this down to about XXS. Okay. All right. That looks good. Then the next thing that I want to do here is I'm going to create some margin at the bottom. So let's put about, yeah, let's do like about XSX there. So just an extra small margin, or small margin is good. Excellent. All right. So now we have our icon. Then let's link it somewhere. So I'm going to go back to the icon itself under general. And if you scroll all the way down, you'll see a place to be able to add a link. And I'm just going to add a link to anything. Let's just say Google. All right. And I'm going to hover over this to make sure that it is linked. So now that I have my icon built out, then I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate the icon. Now, there's a couple of ways to duplicate the icon. You can add, this is an icon block. So you can add multiple icons side by side. For instance, I could do this, and I would have more icons like that, but this is not how I want to build this. I actually want the icons to go vertical. So to do that, I'm going to need separate icon blocks to do it. So I'm going to select the entire block itself, click on the ellipsis, and I'm going to select duplicate. And let's do that about 4 more times. Great. Now we're going to make these all different things. So I'm going to select this one, move over to the right, and we will make this a phone icon. So let's just search for phone. There's a nice phone there. The next one will be an email icon. I'm going to change that. Let's look for envelope or mail, actually might be better. There we go. And then the next one here is going to be a location icon. So this could be an icon menu for contact information. So we're going to look for, let's look for a marker. And then this last one, let's make this a subscribe icon. So I'm going to select that, come over here, and let's search for RSS feed. Here we go. Okay, so now we have our icons in place and they're all linked. So this looks really good. Then the next thing that I want to do is I want to wrap all of this inside of a section. So I kind of built them outside of a section because I wanted to focus on the build out, but we want to wrap this in a section. To do that, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the first one, click on the ellipsis, do an insert before, do a / and search for section. And we're going to select the Kadence section block. Okay, now that I have the Kadence section block, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move these icons into that block. So when I open up the list tree here, you can see the section right here and all the icons are below it. I want the icons to be inside. So I'm going to select the first icon, hit the shift key, select the last icon, then move over here to the editor, click on the drag icon and just drag it inside of that section. So now everything is contained inside of the section. Okay, all right. Now we're done building out our group of icon menus. Okay. Next, we're going to go over here and set up how it's going to appear on the website. So I'm going to go to the element settings. Okay. We have it as a fixed section. The placement that I want is I want it to be fixed to the top after scrolling. So it doesn't show up until you start to scroll. So we're going to select the fixed top after scroll. And then after that, we're going to scroll down here where it says 100% width. We're going to change that to a fixed width. And I only want it to be 300 pixels wide. So 300 pixels wide from whichever side of the browser that it is. The positioning that I want is I want it to be on the right side of the browser, right side of the screen. And then the distance from the edge from that right will be, let's make that 15 pixels. And then the distance from the edge on the y-axis, which is at the top, we'll make this also 300 pixels. Okay. All right. The display settings, we want this to show up on every page, so we'll say entire site. And that's really all we need to do to set this up. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this. All right. And then when we go to the front end of the website, let's go ahead and refresh our screen to make sure that everything loads correctly. And then you'll notice that as we start to scroll, on the right hand side there is our icon menu. So the user can go ahead and click on any one of these items and it will take them to wherever you have it linked to. Okay, and as you scroll up, it will disappear. Start to scroll and it appears. And I just use an icon menu as this example, but you can do that literally with anything, any block or any group of blocks in a way that makes sense. Okay, so this is just a very simple use of the elements feature, but you can already see what the possibilities are in using it. Okay, so I hope that was helpful in terms of understanding the power of the Kadence hooked elements. Up next, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the rest of the pro features in the Kadence Pro Theme add-on. So if you build e-commerce websites using WordPress and WooCommerce, this next pro feature with the Kadence Pro Theme add-on is definitely for you. This is the WooCommerce add-ons, and what this does is it adds some additional functionality to your WooCommerce store. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at it right now. If we go to the front end of the website, and let's say you just had the free version of the Kadence theme installed, and you took a look at the WooCommerce settings for that. This is without the Pro Theme add-on. So if you take a look at that, one of the things you'll notice is that you only have about 6 options in here. Okay. Now, when we install the Kadence Pro Theme add-on and you toggle on the WooCommerce add-ons feature as well, then that actually changes, because when you come over here to WooCommerce, you now notice that you have a few more additional settings. Specifically, there's about 3 additional settings that's added to your WooCommerce store. And in addition to that, your single product layout and your product catalog layout have additional options as well. I'm going to go ahead and go through those options. So when you access the customizer, just go ahead and click on the WooCommerce tab, and it'll bring you over here to the WooCommerce settings. The store notice, which is already available in the free version of the Kadence theme, is basically where you can go and place a notice on your store. This notice can be a sale or an announcement or even an event that you want to announce to people who are visiting your website. But basically anything you put in this box will be displayed at the top of your site. If you enable the store notice, you will notice it directly above the header. So if you already have an item there already that's above that, you can actually control where this displays using the priorities. But that's something for a different tutorial. But this is the text that will show up, and you can change this text. Then the user can go ahead and dismiss the text if they want to. The other options in here as well is you can choose the store notice placement. Right now it's placed above the header, but you can also make it hang over your header. So if you do that, it will hang over any sections that you've placed over there, or you can put it at the bottom of the site if you already have some content up there and you would just much rather have it be there at the bottom. It would just stick to the bottom, and then the user can go ahead and dismiss it if they want. You can disable the ability for them to go ahead and dismiss that text if you want as well. Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and go back to the other items in the WooCommerce add-on. So the single product layout is also available in the free version of the Kadence theme, and the single product layout, similar to all the other custom post types, allows you to control things like your product layout, whether or not you want a sidebar, the content vertical padding, and the product elements that are visible in the single product. Okay, so if we actually look at a single product as an example here, so you can actually choose what is displayed on this page and what product elements you want people to be able to see. So for instance, I can choose to hide the title. Now that wouldn't be a very good idea to hide the title, but you can if you wanted to. And then you can also configure certain elements as well. So for instance, the price can be configured to show a shipping statement. If you toggle this on, then you can add some additional text over here, right? So $129 and free shipping or something like that. You can also control how many extras appear here. So these are the extras that you can add, and you can choose what the icons are. So I can choose a different icon for each one, or have the same icon for all of them. And then the add to cart button as well. You can choose the size of the button, and then you can choose whether or not you want to show a payments, the different types of payments that you accept. So, over here we have Visa, MasterCard, American Express, but there's actually more that you can choose from. You can choose to show Stripe, you can show Apple Pay, and you can show up to 5 additional payment options as well. Okay. If we scroll further down though, what the WooCommerce feature of the Kadence Pro Theme Addon adds is that it adds this sticky add to cart. So what a sticky add to cart is, if we enable this, what this will allow you to do, or allow your users to do as they're browsing your product, is if they start to scroll to see the rest of the information, it slides out an additional row up there, an add to cart row. And here you can see the image of the product, the title of the product, the price, quantity selector, and then add to cart. And it just stays in view while the user is browsing the product page. And that way, if they're ready to add it to the cart, they can go ahead and click the add to cart button very easily without having to scroll all the way back to the top to find the add to cart button. So this is a very, very useful feature. Okay, that's there because you have the WooCommerce product add-ons installed and activated on your site. Okay, let's go back to the list here. The product catalog is also has a little bit of change when you have the WooCommerce add-ons activated. Same thing in terms of the tab itself. This controls the design of your archive page, also controls the way you'll have your layouts, what elements appear. But if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see some additional options here. For instance, you have the ability to add an off-canvas widget area. So this is only available with the WooCommerce product add-on. If we toggle this on, then if you scroll back up here, you'll see a new link. And right now it says filter, but you can have it actually say anything. And then you can add widget items to this panel. So if I click on this, there's a panel that slides out. There's nothing in it now, but you can actually add the widget items to this panel, any widget items you want. It can be an additional menu, a video, a form, additional products, anything at all that you want can be added to this panel. And it's just an additional thing that you can have on your archive pages that your users can interact with. All right, let's go back out to the list here. And then here where you have the catalog off canvas sidebar, okay, this is actually where you can go ahead and add that too. So this is just another section where you can add that. You can also add it in the other place where I showed you. But the best place to really add this information is going to be in the widget area in the back end of the website. That way you have the full access to all the settings for everything that you add here in this panel. Okay, the catalog off canvas sidebar settings controls the actual design and layout of the panel. So this is where you can control the widget title colors, the fonts, the pop-up areas and things like that. You can control the all the design settings are located here in the catalog off canvas sidebar. Then you have product images, which we've talked about before, and then your checkout. So you can customize your checkout. Now this is available to you in the free version of the Kadence theme anyway, but all your information in terms of being able to customize what appears, what fields appear in your checkout, this is where you can control that. For instance, I can choose to hide that company field if my users don't need to put in the company that they're working with to buy products from my website. Okay, let's go ahead and go back out. Now the add to cart behavior, this is new. So this is what's added when you have the WooCommerce add-ons feature enabled. So here you can control what happens when people add products to the cart. So if we go back to, for instance, the shop page as an example. All right, when people add products to the cart as it is right now. So if I add a product to the cart now, it will show me a view cart, and then it will tell me that I've added a product to the cart, and there's a link here to take me to the cart. Okay, so let's go back to the shop page again. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and enable the show the cart pop out on add to cart. And what that does is it's going to pop out the cart when I add a product. So let's add a different product. Let's add this chain. You can see here that a panel now pops out with all my items that are in the cart, keeping me on the archive page. And I can choose to view the cart or go ahead and check out, or I can just close the panel and continue to shop. Okay, so those are the additional features that are added with the WooCommerce add-on feature from the Kadence Pro Theme add-on. And as you can see, these are some very, very useful features that just adds a little bit more engagement for your users. Okay, the next pro feature that you'll get in the Kadence Pro Theme add-on is going to be the infinite scroll. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with what infinite scroll is, but essentially what this is it takes away the pagination in your archives. So your blog archives or your shop archives. Basically, you can scroll infinitely as long as there is content for you to scroll to. So if you want to see where to activate this, it's actually, if we go to the front end of the site here, it's going to be under the General tab. And under the General tab, you're going to find the infinite scroll option. And it's already toggled on for your blog. It's toggled on for search and products. And if you have a custom post type installed, you can also toggle it on for your custom post type. So we don't have enough products for it to show the infinite scroll per se, but if we had a lot more, then this will just continue to scroll on the same page until you got to the end of the content. Same thing with the blog. Okay. The next item that we have here is the color palette switch, which is used to create a kind of a dark mode for your website. But realistically, what this really does is it just allows you to switch between the color palettes of your site. And this can also be found under the General tab here. So if you're looking at the customizer and you select General, here you'll see the color switch dark mode option. So really you can switch to anything. It doesn't have to be a dark mode. So if you access this, for instance, and you enable the color palette switch here, then you have your default color palette, which is usually the first initial color palette that you have. And then you can choose what the dark color palette's going to be. So in my case, it's the third palette out of the 3 color palettes that are available to you. And what that'll do is it'll, over here at the bottom, you'll have these icons. And with these icons here, you can choose to have a light or dark, or your user can actually choose to have a light mode or a dark mode. So if they click on the dark one, for instance, it then changes everything in my shop to the whatever I've set up in the dark mode. And maybe later on, or create a tutorial on how to create a dark mode version of your website using Kadence, and then applying this dark mode color switch to that so that your users can switch between a light mode and a dark mode for your site. It's very easy to do, just takes a little bit of planning and good use of the color palette feature in Kadence, and you can have a dark mode and a light mode for your site. Okay. All right. And now if we go back here and look at the rest of the Pro add-ons, here we have the local Gravatars. And for those of you who may be familiar with WordPress comments, when people typically comment, there's a picture that shows up if they set up a Gravatar at gravatar.com. This just basically allows you to load those Gravatars from your servers instead of it pinging the WordPress servers, which adds some performance issues to your website. So this will reduce those performance issues. And then the final Pro Theme add-on feature here is the archive custom settings. Now, let me explain how this one actually works. So if we go to the front end of the website, for example, here, and let's go to our archive settings. So if you go all the way out, go to your post pages layout, and you go to your archive layout. These are your archive settings, okay, for posts and pages. You also have archive settings for your products as well, but we'll just use the posts and pages as an example. And all these settings are always available to you, whether you're using the free version of Kadence or you're using the pro version of Kadence. But here, one thing to keep in mind is when you're setting things up here or you're doing anything in the customizer, this is being applied globally to your entire website. So every instance of whatever you're customizing will adopt whatever settings you've set up here. Okay, so for instance, if I set up that I want in my archive pages for my blog as an example, I want in the archive pages and the category pages that I want them to always be 3 columns. Then if I set this up at 3 columns, then there will always be 3 columns irrespective of which archive it is. So right now we're looking at the blog archive, but you'll also notice if I go to the jewelry archive, for example, there's also going to be a 3-column layout here. Okay. Now, what if I changed it to 2 columns? Well, if I change it to 2 columns, let's go back. Let's go back to the blog. If I change it to 2 columns, then every single archive page that I have that's related to the blog will be 2 columns. Okay, so everything you set up here in the customizer, just keep in mind that all that setup is global to your site. Okay. Now, what the archive custom settings will do is it'll allow you to actually do this on a archive or category by category basis. And the way this actually works is, let's actually go back here and let's just set this back to what it was as a default. So everything here now is a 3-column archive, every blog. So whether we're looking at the jewelry archive or the jewelry category, you're gonna see that it's a 3-column archive. And I'm gonna go ahead and publish this to save these settings. All right, now if we go back to the back end and we have the archive custom settings toggled on, if you go to the posts and you go to categories, here you'll see the categories that are available in your posts. Okay, so here's that jewelry one. So now I can come in here with the archive custom settings turned on for in the Kadence Pro Theme add-on. If I click on edit, over here you'll notice that we have archive columns, and the default is going to take on whatever is set up in the customizer globally. But I can choose that maybe for the jewelry one only, I want it to have 2 columns and everybody else will have 3 columns. Excuse me, every other category will have 3 columns. So I'm going to go ahead and update this. And then we're going to go back to the front end, go to the customizer. Whoops, actually, not the customizer. We're going to go to the blog. And here in the blog, you notice it's 3 columns. But if I go to the jewelry category, it's 2 columns. And that's what that setting allows you to do. It allows you to set the columns on or the display on a category by category basis. Okay. All right. And with that, that will actually conclude the walkthrough of the Kadence Pro Theme add-on. It will also conclude this tutorial where we've walked through pretty much every capability in Kadence If there's anything that I missed or anything that you want to know about, you can go ahead and leave that in the comments and let me know. And I will go ahead and add that to the tutorial or make a new video about that specific feature. But I think, and I believe we covered every single aspect of Kadence, both the free and the pro version, and everything that you get with that. We also covered some things in Kadence and Kadence blocks. I will be creating another tutorial that addresses more on the Kadence block side and shows you how to specifically use those blocks to build out those pages. But for this tutorial, that is going to be a wrap. Hey, if you liked this tutorial and you enjoyed the content, please go ahead and give it a like, leave a comment in the comment section below. If you're looking for any of the resources that I used in this tutorial, I will link them in the description below as well. And if you are a subscriber to my channel, I want to say how much I appreciate you subscribing to the channel. And if you're not a subscriber, I would greatly appreciate it if you would go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can get notified every time I release a video such as this one. Once again, thank you very much for staying to the end. I know this was a long video, it's quite in depth, but I wanted to make sure that you had everything that you needed to be able to build beautiful and wonderful websites using the Kadence suite of tools. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.